Live.
Live.
Okay,
Good morning.
welcome to our selectmen's meeting on April 6th, 2021. And with that, who wants a folder?
I'll take one.
Yeah, I'll give you the big
Oh,
one.
thank
Chuck.
you. It's too heavy, I can't lift it. My back. No.
Yeah. Yeah, how's that, the height of that?
From a standpoint of a disc problem in my back, this height is perfect.
You know, kid your age getting back problems this early? Just saying.
Hey, Rodney, what's the change on the Effingham Falls Cemetery?
who it's made out to. The trustees didn't accept it. I made it, asked the check be made out to Lyle.
Is that how it's always been?
They told me not, that it goes to the association. So, see the second one down you previously signed, I put an arrow change. That's what I changed,
Yeah.
yeah. That was per Karen.
That does sound reasonable. I mean, it is the association, so. But you wouldn't have known.
So do we know when that's gonna get to him?
I think she'll do it promptly, yeah.
Thanks.
These are,
Yeah. On this common technology, just as a, so you know, in the contact, it still has Cheryl on here.
When you get to this, signature folder, read the report on the transfer station.
I have.
You did?
I have it to discuss.
You got it there?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. The increasing concentration of those PMs, something we're gonna have to monitor.
Yeah, that's ongoing, this fluctuation. I'll talk to this in a greater context as I presented several things to the Conservation Commission last night.
Okay.
That was, but good catch.
Sir.
Okay, bring that to Joe's attention. I'm glad it's using a code, but I'll check.
That does get annoying, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Keeps reminding me, I can check it.
There's a switch that puts it on silent, you know.
Well, surprisingly, even though people know that this meeting is going on, they'll text me, and it's actually something that I probably should address, and sometimes it's actually a requirement of the meeting, so. Let me check. That is the case today. That is our police department. So this post-closure landfill report, okay, you've attached the signature page, because it's in here twice, one unsigned, one unsigned.
Maybe it came out that way.
Well, I'm sure it all printed, and we supplied you the single page to scan, so
Okay.
just pointing it out. Everything's fine, just mentioned. Everybody has seen all this stuff. Did you see this one, Chuck?
I believe I did.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Just so you up to speed on that message, that was Chief Duchesne, and he would like to have some time with us at the end of the meeting for a non-public police issue stuff. And that's why I keep it on.
Yeah, I understand.
And that'll be
It's
verification.
rescheduling right now.
All right, I think that'll about do it. Confirmation. propane rate is up now.
It was a long message.
So it would appear that our generators are in decent shape here for the emergency systems, and
Yeah, the annual maintenance.
yeah,
Didn't look like they had to do anything other than the annual maintenance.
which is good because last year we had some bills coming for that. So that was kind of nice. I'm seeing 2 of the 3 here.
That Jacob's glass one, we
Yeah.
didn't pay last year. So we did get the check. That was the second half of the grant, the Moose Lake grant.
Yep.
We got it in. We just never paid the vendor, so.
Oh, that's unfortunate that they didn't. Hey. Okay.
Money's here.
See, uniforms for a new hire here at the police department, which we confirmed. No, you were here. Yeah. So we have a lot of part-time police officers, and a lot of them are out on our roads. I know I had just a short conversation with Chief DeShane, and some of the interesting things that take place on our little nook and cranny roads, they seem to be getting some attention. It was very enlightening, and maybe that'll be part of whatever is shared today, I don't know. All right, there's a fair amount of stuff today. Let's see, we can't get right into this now with the approval of the minutes of March 23rd. I will, regular meeting minutes, I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Fuller second with an edit.
Aha, any discussion?
I need my section, it refers to UCC, it should have been FCC E-rate and Audrey Handler.
Okay.
But other than that,
All right. Then with that, a motion to approve was on the floor. All in
all
favor?
right,
Hal and I, moving on. We have a manifest in the amount of $35,777.83. I will make a motion to approve.
Fuller second,
All in favor?
all right,
Hal and I. With that, we have the signature folder in which Effingham Fall Cemetery Association has finally received their check for the trust funds that has processed through the trustees, I hope, at this point. We know that, Audrey?
What? Sorry.
That's okay. Effingham Falls Cemetery, the check was cut, but has that gotten through the trustees of trust funds?
The check was not cut because my request to the trustees was returned because it was made out to the wrong.
So poor Lyle is still waiting for.
Yes, he is.
Okay. All right, thank you.
yeah, the check has to physically go to the association, not to an individual person.
Right. So just Lyle's patience has got to be great, so hopefully he hangs in there with us a little longer. We had an abatement for a solar array in the signature folder, an application for current use, which was a correction previously approved. And
Can you address the solar abatement? Did you sign it or not? Because there was discussion about that. Because it was not received in the town office until April 1st and it was due March 1st. That's why I'm putting stickies with notes on it in the signature folder.
right.
We signed it for next year.
Well, they're gonna get it automatically for next year,
Oh, okay.
okay? But, this person is claiming they submitted in November. We have no record of it. So,
Yeah. Yeah, with that moving forward, as Chuck said, it would be good for next year.
Yeah, I don't mind signing it for next year, but if we don't, I mean, it'll be picked up automatically anyway. But nothing for this year.
Yeah, if there's not proper documentation supplied.
There's no dates on applications or anything,
right,
Right,
which kind of questions.
yeah, and there should be a stamp date of receipt here at the office.
right.
Typically,
So
when,
we stamped the envelope, so it was left in the drop box, and I believe David stamped the back of it, so it wouldn't be modified. But the applicant's claiming that it was submitted in November with the other piece of paper that's attached to it, and we have no record. We
okay.
can't find anything.
And there again, the idea of stamping the envelope is probably fine, but the document always,
Yeah, we did the back though,
okay,
and it was never reviewed by Avatar or anything, because normally you get a recommendation from Avatar, and it was not.
yeah, so again,
David put that in there with notes,
yeah, and I saw that date issue. Again, I feel that the documentation needs to be accurate, dated, received date stamped, otherwise anybody can submit anything, anytime and make claims. And we need to have, it's the same when we send things out, like Lyle's check, it's accountability. So
Right.
I'm afraid I would have to say without evidence to the contrary, we just have to go on the dates that we can confirm.
Okay.
So it's effective next year.
All right. All right, so where are we?
Just quickly on the application for current use, you saw that was just also,
It was a redo,
they
basically.
put the light out and they return it, you can't use black, you have to use black ink, you can't use blue ink, they're very tricky.
Oh, and I just signed in blue, so is that gonna be an issue?
Did you not see?
You need a what one?
Use black ink.
No,
All right, I'm gonna write in big bold red pen from now
I guess. Signatures. Let's see if we can.
on.
Application for the. See if it passes.
Okay.
If it gets rejected, then that one is definitely on me. Blue pen away, black pen out. I think about that. It's like, some documents, black pen, my bad. Knew better. Let's see, we had the review of the mail and, well, I'll go back one since we had that current use issue. The Effingham Town landfill post-closure report was done by HEB, and I will be addressing that when it cycles back. So review of the mail, we have the zoning officer's report for March, and the fire chief's report came in as well, which the mail, I think that was kind of noteworthy. A couple of things in there was that they had 44 calls for March.
It's a pretty sizable run rate.
And let's see, they had 8 of those calls were listed as unintentional or false. So I know Chief Burbank kind of alluded to some issues there the last time we had him in and spoke. We might want to follow up with him on that because he was looking for a little guidance on how to move forward on some of those. I don't know if he's still, if this is what he was talking about, or, but we may, we have a policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. It's posted on the website. So I think he was gonna pull that. I just don't know what he was gonna do with it.
All right.
So we may need to have a follow-up on that. So that was my point on that one. With the one other exception is that they had, even though with all those call volumes, they managed to have 5 trainings at the fire department last month. So it's pretty good amount of training sweeping in here for the spring. So another item in the report here is a notice the ZBA granted a special exception on map 401 lot 5. And that's for an auto, it looks like they listed that as an auto repair, which I don't think that was really the crux of what was being asked for. So I'm a little fuzzy on that one. I believe that that was the one for the gas tanks down here at the old Boyles Market. Maybe,
I read, how I read it.
yeah, so it's very unclear in the granting of the special exception as to what that was. But it is being referred to all commercial operations go to the planning board for a site plan review. So I'm sure that will be the point where they nail that down a little more. And speaking of the planning board, there'll be a lot line adjustment on the 8th, Thursday this week. Looks like the application to be considered at 6:15 p.m. And there'll be lot line adjustments, pretty basic stuff. But the meeting has been moved from Tuesday the 1st of Thursday of the month. So the planning board meeting is on the 8th this month. That was just a little something I wanted to pass on. And then we have a notice from the town of Ossipee, it would appear, that there's an application and a permit that's been approved to use a herbicide in Ossipee Lake. So apparently it says more
I
notification.
think it's the permit request,
Yeah,
because one of the comments was, if it's approved,
Right.
we'd be getting further information.
Okay, correct. You're right. Because they're gonna take public input, and there'll be, looks like there'll be a division of pesticide and control for the Department of Agriculture to request a public hearing. Comments may be received in writing 15 days in receipt of this notice. So with that, this is not ours, so don't call here for information at the town of Effingham. I would imagine you potentially could reach out to the town of Ossipee, but we have a number here for the Department of Agriculture. And with that, I'll read off that number. It's a New Hampshire 603 number, 271-3550. Again, that's New Hampshire 271-3550. If you have any concerns with what treatments will be used and what that will, those chemicals that will be used in Ossipee Lake, and it looks like they have a significant number of areas listed here, A through N. So there you go. It's probably about 15, 16 locations. And it's pretty much all the information we have at this point. So
should I forward that to the Conservation Commission?
I think that would be a really great idea. I wasn't aware of that last night, or I would have shared that little bit of information. So now we have some announcements here. The town clerk is seeking questions from the public for candidates night. That can be emailed into the town if people have questions. Candidates night is Tuesday, April 13th at 6:30 p.m. There'll be a Zoom link will be available on the town's website. Earlier this morning, the town clerk entered the room and explain that candidate Espy is declining to attend, to take part. That's his choice. I, on the other hand, plan on being here, and I will take on any and all questions time allows for. So, ask me anything. I'm gonna be here. Hopefully the town moderator and the town clerk won't postpone or cancel that candidate's night. I think it's important, so there you go. 91A request folder, we have 2 requests from Lawrence Edwards about HEB engineers. Payments that were made for the 2020 and 2021 calendar years. I think Audrey, you provided that information, it would appear.
Yeah.
Looks like 2021 is $626.25 this year. And the total for last year was $71,792.87. Just off the top of my head, I kind of jotted down where that money went. Pine River Road culvert emergency permit and the permitting to get the permit we have just received. I'll cover that tonight. And the design for the overflow culverts, that project was in there. The Snow Road Bridge project is part of that for reviews of design and consultations. Working with the bridge engineer as our engineer, the USDA's engineer, and Mike Hanson's engineer, and Mike Hanson himself, of course. And also there was some specialty requirements with the additional engineering that had to go to the USDA, things that I couldn't provide. So those are part of those costs, along with the was it fluorocarbons, I guess, the PFAS is the easy way to deal with that one. And it's a much greater listing than just simply PFAS. That testing was done, and I have that report that Chuck alluded to earlier.
And that's transfer station.
And that's transfer station. So they do the PFAS, they do groundwater monitoring, and they monitor the landfill itself for all the various things in the document that they cover that we have to keep an eye on with the landfill. That's
And that's an annual expense of the transfer station.
right. So that's a yearly thing, and every 5 years we're open to a much greater testing or wells in the vicinity, if so mandated by the Department of Environmental Services. So there's a lot of things that make up that $71,000. It's not for one project or another. There's quite a few things going on that we require engineering services for in the town of Effingham, and HEB has proven to be the go-to company for that these days. All right, and the next thing we're on to is discussion items for beaver control and culvert cleanup. We have on our list to talk to Mr. Evans to construct more of those beaver grates, and we have some specific locations we'd like to have him install those on. We also have been discussing a culvert cleanout device that I saw that last year, the year before, I can't remember. I have to dig it out. That's on my to-do list. I had talked to Ron about it, and I think we've all discussed that that might be a worthy expense, because the price of changing one culvert is basically this piece of equipment, and we could see if it helps us out. That way we wouldn't have to dig up and replace culverts. We could just simply run this device through and clean them out. And that's on the list to speak with Ron Evans about as well. We do have a meeting, and if all of us would like to attend, or the majority of the board, that meeting is on April 20th. We will also be meeting to discuss some road things with one of our vendors. So besides Mr. Evans, there's some upcoming patchwork for paving.
Do you know the time on that, Mike?
That's 1:30.
Okay.
The location to meet at has not been nailed down. It's likely we could meet here at this facility, or potentially Elm Street Bridge, or maybe a central location.
I want to be part of that, which means there'll be a selectmen's meeting, so we
Okay.
need to post it.
Okay, so
Can you just say me here?
Yeah,
Because
that's,
we gotta post location.
right, let's just do that. Let's,
Right on
April 20th at 1:30 PM.
it. And it's gonna be a drive around.
Right, it's gonna be a mobile meeting, so. Is that okay? Audrey, you're giving me a look.
Yeah.
All right. Whatever that is, we'll make sure we clear that up. What else have we got on there? There's any discussion on the beaver control or added items to put on the list to talk to Ron about? Or make your own list and bring them so that we make sure we cover all issues. I will say that along with the discussions of Ron, they're out there grading, they're out there fixing potholes, and I think some attention is probably being made to down tree and debris. If not, that's something I'll bring up, but
Are they removing any of the weight limit signs
the weight limit signs were removed yesterday.
on every road?
Yes.
Okay.
They may be some areas where it's very shaded, it might have some frost. Hopefully that'll dry up and not be a bigger problem, but the greater usage of the town roads is probably acceptable risk. I believe the local area towns have also lifted on yesterday. So again, we try to match, like, yeah, especially when we're connecting, say, to Ossipee, a lot of our roads tie in. So we don't want to be in conflict with other operations locally. And I think other area towns, as I said, I was told we're lifting, and the state has already previously lifted, but a lot of their roads are in somewhat constructed to a higher standard. Route 153, the exception that I would clearly point out, but that's the state roads. Let's see, other than that, we're down to the town administrator's comments. So Audrey.
On the beaver control, you may want to get a quote from Ron and compare it to other outside vendors who do that. I have good experience with one. And the police sergeant said to me yesterday that with the frost going away, nature speed bumps are going away, and we're seeing more speeding in town, and they're out and watching for it. They used oil grant, we got a check for 2,500.
Nice.
And we have a check for 1,800 from the Preservation Society.
Wonderful.
Can we go after another 2,500 this year?
Absolutely, and I have that on my list. And so let's see, vendors. Yes, we could absolutely look into what cost would be to get a similar type or even a different device that might be suitable.
Yeah, I want to talk about design too.
Well, that's what I mean.
Some of the, Audrey provided a really good document.
I got
actually go over and look at some National Park Service stuff. And there was some stuff that would be really nice if we wanted to spend a lot of money on it. A lot of the deceivers were box type, which I'm not sure how well that'll work in our area because we still need to strip stuff away.
Right.
And you wouldn't be able to do that with a box system easily anyway. Evans Brothers can't reach out there far enough into a low area to get stuff out.
So one of the problems you might run into with the tube and the tube effect of a beaver deceiver too is culverts, extending them, doing anything to go inside them. You open yourself up to a round of permitting and the Department of Environmental Services. So just on the face of it, it looks like it could be problematic. Do I know that? I don't.
Well, let's look into it.
But then other design options, and that's where it's going. I had seen some things Audrey had pointed out in the past. I hadn't had time to access the email you just sent. My apologies.
With the recipes.
With the recipes, exactly. I missed them. I've got a big pile of.
Were the recipes attached to that? There was an overview document there was, but I didn't see any recipes.
Yeah, the first one I sent yesterday, the older document does have recipes.
Oh, okay.
They were actually.
I got them both.
We're gonna, Darlene Werther has started, she just hit the ground running yesterday. She did payroll following where we gave out the last new residents packet, and I had not ever looked at them, and I was embarrassed by them, so we will be revising.
New residents packet?
Yeah, when we have a new resident in town, we had,
It's actually been there for a while.
I imagine.
but the same thing had been copied and was askew, and
Oh,
some of the wording will be changed from it, so we're gonna update that. I'm working with Lenhart tomorrow to understand the data storage on the server. Because right now, I guess it was a project the former town administrator had started and it never got finished. So I would like an HR directory that, I can get into and put information in, and each of the boards has a directory and they don't know how to get into it. There's a laptop in this room that is not getting backed up, things like that. So Brandon and I are gonna work on that.
Will he help us do a high-level step documentation? Because I'm sure with turnover in people, we're gonna need to have something that we can hand somebody that says, here's the beginning and basics, that help them get into something. Depending on the machine they're using.
Yeah, I don't need passwords and things, so
No,
they will automatically.
just step.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty straightforward, just nothing right. So, the E911 program, David and I talked, David and I talked about that yesterday. He's going to meet with, fire and police and myself to talk about what the E911 program is. Once in a while I get an email saying, oh, add number 118 on the street. And, I don't understand it all, but he said, ideally, and it happened that Randy walked in, when we're talking about it, there's, a decent map that has the roads and how to deal with the campgrounds and things like that. So he's gonna pick that up. He's also setting up a meeting with Rebecca and Teresa, and we're doing a flow chart of the zoning and planning documents that come in and who they go to, because I receive them, I don't know where to file them, where to go, things like that. And maybe with an ultimate and eventual getting rid of the inventory sheet. We have some ideas that we may present to you, if cost effective to get rid of that. I've observed the amount of time that those take, and it's great.
We have had some discussions, I think, with David on that independently, and we've encouraged him to pursue that. And so, yeah, and we recognize the same archaic, outdated system.
I need advice on Eversource. We're 3 months into the lighting bill that I have not paid, so
I have that on my.
I need to know what to do with that, if I should pay a couple months or,
I think we'll have some discussion on that.
all right. And then, I had a meeting scheduled for Wednesday on the personnel policy, but I'd like to delay that so that I can devote Wednesday to the town report. I'm just gonna close my door.
And
We made good headway last week.
Yeah, we did.
Had a Zoom call for an hour.
okay.
Plus, well,
No, we didn't. We did it in person.
we did it in person, you're right.
Right.
Sorry. Yeah,
You're
I'm just
coming
thinking
in,
Zoom.
right?
I'm so zooming nowadays, right? Yeah, right, we were right here.
And I'm gonna keep harassing Amy Rock because they showed up unexpectedly and did some stuff, but they didn't do other stuff, like getting the video for the police department available and their monitor working, so. They're just one of the companies that the Holly overextended, and
Unfortunately, they're one of the only companies around.
exactly.
So, yeah, there's some things in there that I'm going to follow up on later. The town report is, as you pointed out, is a priority at this point. So as much as other things are important, the town report really is the priority item, I would say. And hopefully, if you need help, Darlene's probably able to help with that. I would hope.
Mrs. Stroud has just joined us as Ms. Dunn's also online.
Okay, well, if you could hold on just a minute. What was the first couple of things that you listed off on your categorically there? Down at the beaver, deceiver devices down below there. Just want to make sure. It seems like there was something else that was of interest to me today. You have your discussion points?
I do. The beaver controls and the 911, the fire and police system, the new residence package, the one house drive, report, and the
So I'm not sure if there was nothing before that. Maybe it's the Lenhock to do with our backup storage, because at one point it seemed like we were going to extend the life of the equipment we had. I don't know if that's still sufficient, and if it's not, we're probably going to need to be discussing funding down the road. So if you see a big ticket item in there, then please let us know so that we can kind of factor that in going forward. And then I didn't know about the new residence package. I never received one, but that's going back some time. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting thing that I would love to see. Along with the E911, my thoughts were that sometimes people come into town or are here and decide they're going to change their mailing address. And just as a matter of clarification for you, you may never have dealt with this. Unlike the city of Concord or bigger places, they get to assign a number. We don't have that option here. That gets assigned to us. So if somebody's new in town, builds a new house, I see that there's some new construction planned for some new homes, that they don't, when they get a new driveway permit and stuff, we don't assign the number to that address. Just FYI.
who does?
That,
State?
yeah,
It's
I think the postal, the post office either does it, or I forget now. I know the answer to that, but I am overloaded. I think I can't draw it up. I'll get back to you on that. Because if it's not the post office, then it's some portion of the government. Okay. So apparently you didn't know about that, so I'm glad I brought that up. We'll look into it. As you stated, Bill Straub is here from CMA Engineers, and Lori Dunn from the Province Lake Association apparently is here as well. I see Bill up on the screen, and Laurie, and our DM master, Mr. Mark Hampton, is with us today. Hey, Mark, how are you? A little bit about this before we jump right in with you folks. I'm just going to point out that we had a grant that we chased and received for $75,000 the other year, and there was it was through the Department of Environmental Services, and with that there was a qualifications based selection of our engineering companies, of which there were 8 very well-known, prominent engineering companies in the state of New Hampshire who bid on that project, which is really something for our little town. I don't think we've ever generated that level of interest before. And the folks who came out on top of that selection process are obviously Mr. Straub and his company, CMA Engineers, and along with CMA, we have Thomas Ballesteros, I hope I'm doing his name some justice, from Streamworks, another company that's partnered with CMA. And we have DK Water Resources Consulting, I believe they're out of Wolfboro, and that's Don Crutchmeyer. And I believe wetland scientists who are either involved in that company or separate, which is Mark Jacobs. And I would have to say the knowledge and expertise that you bring here with all the folks that you have listed within these companies was extremely impressive, which is no doubt why you got the job. So you're well represented here, and I just wanted to share that with the public that we didn't find you out of a phone book. So with that, I will just add that we have a presentation that was provided, and we had a little hiccup on our end that the other board members couldn't attend because we failed to recognize a posting date, in which case this whole report was presented to myself and Ms. Fraser, our town administrator, and it was extremely impressive. And right now, Bill is here to kind of give us a summary and an overview of this. When this was presented, there were 6 folks from Bill's group and 2 of our environmental services representatives that we've been working with from the state. So we had 8 people on that call to cover all the bases and ask questions. With that, I'd love to kick this off to you, Bill.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet with you this morning. We had a interim project review meeting a week and a half ago, and so I'm gonna give a quick summary of that so you can have the status of this and where it's headed. If I share my screen, will you be able to see that? Okay, let's try it. This is the we sent up the copies of the presentation. I need to be authorized to share screens by somebody over there.
Audrey is working on that.
Okay.
I'm not sure that we've attempted this before, Bill, so.
Well, it'll be new ground for everybody then. That's great. With Zoom, there's a way to allow others to have control. And let's see. There we go. Look at that. Okay. Thank you. Share. Did that work?
It did.
All right. We should all go home now. We've done the hardest part. No, this is great. So we've been working with Tom Ballestero's group. Tom, you may know, is a professor of civil engineering at UNH, University of New Hampshire, and his specialty is water resources and stormwater management and that kind of thing. And he has a practice on the side called Streamworks, which involves several other folks, and we teamed with them on this. And they're specialists in the water flow part of this. I'll go from there. There's when you look at any kind of culvert or bridge or stream flow situation, you do what's called the hydrology first, and then you follow that by what's called the hydraulics. So it's hydrology and hydraulics. And these guys worked with us to develop some of the parameters for that. It gets a little technical, which we don't need to get necessarily bogged down on. I'll summarize the major conclusions going forward. So we, in terms of our overall scope, we've had meetings. We had a kickoff meeting, which you probably recall, back in October when it finally got authorized by GNC. And then we had, of course, our review meeting last week, which we're redoing here a little bit. We had a survey done, detailed survey up at the site. We worked with a company called Bernier out of TF Bernier out of Concord for that. He also did the wetlands mapping. And then the hydraulic modeling, which I was talking about, that was done primarily by Streamworks. And that was that, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but that looks at low flows, high flows, different precipitation events, and the reaction of the flow in the South River through the culverts under Bailey Road in response to those situations. Then we looked at hydraulic modeling, which is different alternatives for replacement structures for those failing culverts at Bailey Road, and see what happens with the flows when that happens, with different alternatives for that, and including looking ahead to DES permitting of this, the wetlands permitting. They're big on aquatic organism passage. You have to make sure that you've got that covered so that fish and other critters that might be migrating up and down the watershed are not impaired which they are somewhat now. And then the other issue is sediment transport comparisons, which is a fairly minor thing in this case. So we do that, do the hydraulic modeling there. And then we're looking at alternatives, which we started. I'll explain those in a minute. And then finally, one of the scope items was effect of alternatives on lake phosphorus concentrations, which is high. It's been of concern for many years up at Province Lake. And there are a couple of subtle things that we might be able to do to positively affect, probably not hugely affect, but move the needle in the right direction in terms of phosphorus levels in the lake. Phosphorus levels in the lake come primarily from sediment, erosion into the lake, and also to a lesser extent or a different extent from septic systems of all the residences around the lake. Those two things contribute to phosphorus. And phosphorus, as you all know, is a contributor to algae blooms, which are unattractive and undesirable on the lake. And so then we're moving into some stormwater cost estimates and preferred alternatives, and we're in the process now of getting ready for a final report. So we're about 2/3 of the way through this right now, and that's why we're doing the update report. This is an existing conditions plan, which you all recognize probably. Bailey Road comes through here. The little dam is right there. The culverts are right here, and the Bailey Road goes east to west. These green are the limits of the jurisdictional wetlands, which there's no surprise to anybody. There's marshes on either side of the culverts, and there's this interesting feature, a hydraulic feature between the lake itself, the dam here, and the culverts here. This is the beginnings of the South River, and it's connected to the lake, and it's kind of its own hydraulic feature here, interestingly, because of the way the dam operates. But we'll get into that a little bit more. Here's some photos. This is looking west to east. The culvert is right there. And the road is flat, pretty much as a pancake as it goes across there. It's a posted weight limit, which is low. And you all know there's two culverts here. One you can see the top of in this photograph, and there's another one that's completely submerged over here. They're about 4-foot culverts, one here and one there. So there's a total of 8 feet of culverts across the crossing. The head wall's in not good shape, and the guardrails are in terrible shape. So there's nothing good about this. It does pass the water, however. This, as you all know, is the dam and the walkway across the dam. And there's another photo here that shows, yeah, here's better. This is the top of the dam, where there's you see the slot there for the boards that go in, and the boards go in as we head near summer. And a note on the dam, and you all know more about this than I do, but as I understand it, in the 70s, when the culverts were replaced, the level control in the lake was essentially lost or not as good. So this dam was put in to create hydraulic controls for basically the summer levels in the lake.
Hey, Bill, that was the 90s.
90s. Oh,
Yeah, early 90s.
thank you. I got that all wrong.
You did have some documents we sent you that captured all that, but I didn't want to correct you last time because you were on a great roll.
Oh, okay. Well, all right.
You're still on a great roll.
All right, good. Only 20 years ago. That's great. That's better. And this was to create, this is the outlet to the lake. So it's a very subtle situation here. In December here, it was the logs are gone, or the planks are gone, and it's the channel runs itself. But this does control the lake level in the low flow situations, and the culverts control the lake level in the high flow situations. That's a fundamental thing. You got two hydraulic controls, depending on whether there's a lot of water coming out of the system or a little bit of water coming out of the system. The control goes back and forth between the culverts and the dam, and we'll see that a little more. When the high flow situations, the dam is submerged essentially, and the hydraulic restrictions of the culverts take over. And in low flow situations, the hydraulic situation of the culverts are irrelevant, and the dam is the only thing that's relevant to the lake. So this is the watershed of the lake. The lake's about 900 acres in total, or almost 1,000 acres in total. The blue lines here are all the contributing watersheds to the lake. They're in sub-watersheds. This is interesting because of the watershed to the lake in terms of acreages, and it's about 3,800 acres of watershed to 1,000 acres of lake, is relatively small. Most water bodies of this size have a much larger contributing watershed flowing to them. So there's not as much water, I should put it this way, there's not as much land flowing to the lake as you would see in many other lakes that are of this size. So the effect of that is there's not as much water flushing through the lake system as you might have in another situation. So if the water's always in the lake, but there's less water flowing through the lake system than there are at other lakes of this size in general. And that's an observation of how it works. There's a major stream that comes in down off of 153. There's some minor streams that come in elsewhere, but this is the outlet and the site of Bailey Road heading to the South River. We talked about the dam a little bit. As I said, the hydraulics of the system are controlled alternatively from the low flow at the dam and high flow at the culvert. We'll talk about that a little more. This is getting a little bit technical, but these are cross sections that we had done by the surveyors downstream and upstream of the culverts and at the dam to look at the modeling of the system. And there's two things which are very important here. One is the slope of the South River north of the dam, north of the culverts, is very mild. There's very small grade drop across the marsh, and you can see that it's very flat. There's a very small gradient down through the river here, but it's not high. I forgot what the numbers are. It's on the order of less than a foot for about 2,000 feet down. And then there's cross sections from the culvert up to the dam. So the Streamworks does all this to be able to understand the modeling of the hydraulics and the hydrology. So they did all this, and they talked about the effects of beaver dams, which I'll get on in a minute. And they did their hydraulic modeling. And when they talk about hydraulic modeling, they have inputs to these numerical models, and they'd like to check those against reality. And they spoke with Mark and got some observations that were consistent with the historic observations at the dam, were consistent with the modeling. That's good. And the modeling was also consistent with FEMA estimates. So it's all very good. So we like our modeling. And this is a cross section of these are exaggerated vertical scales. So the vertical scale is exaggerated, so things look much bigger than they really are. There's a dam with the flashbores in it, and at low flow, the dam controls the lake, and the culverts don't have much impact on the lake. And there's beaver dams in sometimes, there's beaver dams out sometimes. The beaver dams are typically present someplace down the South River. They don't go away. So the culverts are flooded probably at varying degrees at varying locations because of beaver dams north of the culvert on the South River. They don't affect that much, but they do affect the depth in the culvert for fish passage and that kind of thing. So this would be low flow. And at higher flows, this 1 in 50, that's one event in the 50, this is called the 50-year flood. It has a 2% chance of happening every year, numerically. And here, the Bailey Road culverts control and the upstream dam is flooded. If they looked into at just to see what happens if you took the culvert out, if you ignored the culvert that was there hydraulically, there's some increase in flow in the river and some increase in elevation of the river and some decrease in the lake level. And I'll get to that a little more in a minute. It acts like a dam, if you will, the outlet to a dam as opposed to a culvert on a normal brook. So if you open up the sluiceway to a dam with the culvert being made larger or removed, more water passes through, and that makes sense. And the source of that water is the lake. So the lake level comes down a little bit, not a lot, but there's a lot of water in the lake. So this is what we see, and I'll get back to that in a minute. We don't have. Okay, they concluded, although it's not that relevant, that if there were no beaver dams in the South River system, the river might not be very passable for certain fish species, but that's almost never the case. There's almost always some downstream flooding because of beaver activity. Okay, we're looking at essentially 3 different culvert options here, and the first one is a 10-foot wide 3-sided box, which looks something like this. And the advantages of this would be a pre-cast concrete system, probably. The reason it's one of the advantages of the requirements at this situation is that if we had a arch system, which would be made out of aluminum or something like that, in order to get the same kind of opening in it, the arch has to come up, and the elevation would have to increase over the roadway quite a bit. And so that probably doesn't work because you have to raise up over the roadway. And these concrete systems, because they're so rigid, can be much narrower in profile. The second option is either a 12-foot wide concrete box like this, or there's something called a conspan system, which is a buried system where there's a bit of an arch, and that may or may not fit in this case, but it's a general option. And then there's a third option, which is called we're calling an 18-foot wide structure. And the reason that the wider structures are being considered is the DES has a policy that when you have a new crossing of an existing brook or river, that you go to what's called 1.2 times bank full width. So you assess the bank full width of the stream, and the width of your crossing is that plus something. So that's 1.2. And the idea of that is to create a pathway that the critters don't know is covered by a road, if you follow me. So the critters can go up and they can crawl on the sides and so forth. So the passage is basically unrestricted for biota. Now, in this case, we're talking to DES about whether that's necessary, because we have a deep channel and the characteristics are different than a normal stream bottom in the middle of the woods someplace. So I'll tip us off. The 10-foot section has at least the characteristics for aquatic passage and sediment transport that are favorable. The existing 2 pipes there, there's 4 foot on one and 4 foot on the other, has an effect of 8 feet, although it's not hydraulically the same as an open situation, which is a whole lot more. So we're choosing nominally a 10-foot section. That would be the smallest section we would put here. And the other 2 are for comparison. And we'll end up where we end up when we get done with all that. So this, we've already talked about, that just confuses us, but I wanted to take a second on this chart here, that during low flow, the characteristics of depth and velocity of the different sections are shown here. The velocity goes down from a 5.05 feet per second to less and less. And so the scour velocities are similarly good. So the hydraulic options with it going everything larger than the existing improve for both fish and scour. So all these, any system will probably work for the permitting requirements, and we got to confirm that that is so in DES's opinion. These are technical, but I want to show two numbers on them. Under existing conditions, the flow for with a 50-year storm is 130 cubic feet per second heading into the South River. The flow for an 18-foot box, or it's pretty close for the other ones too, is 50 or 60% higher. And I talked about that a minute ago. We have more flow going out of the system because we're actually draining the lake a little bit. So there's more flow going down the system with larger openings. And this is kind of technical, but I wanted to show you this as well. This is for the 50-year storm event, which is the high flow situation. For the 10-foot, 12-foot, and 18-foot thing, and then they put the no bridge in there just for comparison. The discharges go up, and the discharge is now about 107 cubic feet per second, and it goes up 30%, 34%, 48%, 68% with the various openings. So there's more water going down the South River. And over here, the Providence Lake situation, you got the lake going down a little bit. But during this, even with no bridge there, it's only going down by 1/10 of a foot, which is about an inch, inch and a half. So that's almost imperceptible in the lake, but that extra volume of the lake ends up in the river. So you don't really see an effect of the lake levels, but there is some. So that we open up the opening, it's letting more water out, and we're draining the lake a little bit. And that's how it all works. So we thought about, okay, let's look at the downstream impacts. If we let more water going down, if you're evaluating a 10 or a 12 or an 18-foot structure, what do we got downstream here? And there are three structures downstream. There's a long marsh, and the first one is on Granite Road, which I believe is, Mike, that's shut now, right?
Right, that's a closed bridge that we are probably about 3 years away from being able to.
Okay.
Place.
So yeah, and what we with this additional flow increases a flooding situation there, but Mike explained that that's in the process of being reconstructed, and so that probably would be resolved. And then there's at the Nutter Road Bridge, there was that's been reconstructed fairly recently, and that's probably not a problem.
Okay, let me correct you on that one. That's the Stevens Road culvert, sir.
Oh.
Yeah, that one's the reconstructed one.
Yes.
The Granite Road Bridge is down towards 153 in the general area of Nutter Road.
Okay, got it. Sorry about that. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And so this one's fine. This one's going to be replaced, and then the one down on Snow Road is in the process of being upgraded. So that what we conclude is there's probably no significant downstream impacts of increasing the flow in the South River. That's good news.
You know, I hate to stop you and interrupt again. Could you explain about the one all by itself on the left, is Snow Road? And I think you're kind of just moving away from that because of a conversation we had, because that bridge is scheduled to be replaced this May. without that bridge replacement, wasn't there some flow concerns
Yes.
overtopping? Could you?
Yes, I'm sorry. I blew right by that. You see here, there's a additional 6 inches of additional overtopping on the highest flows out of here. So this, without action at this location, you would increase a flooding risk, not insignificantly. So if that's being taken care of, then that addresses that additional risk of flooding. But you probably, without that happening, you would think twice about increasing the flows in the river.
Thank you.
But yeah, okay, great. So downstream effects are probably manageable of increasing the flow in the river. And so where we are right now is we're looking at the 10, 12, and 18-foot alternatives. We're confirming what will be allowable by DES under their wetlands rules. We think the 10 or the 12-foot opening would be fine. And that's lesser money, and it's appropriate. I think it'd be overkill to go to 18 on this thing. And plus it increases the flow much more than the others. And that's not undesirable. We can handle it, but there's no need in sending all that extra water down the river during the high flow situations. So we're going to finalize those alternatives and put numbers on them. We're in the process with Don Kretschmer of looking at sediment transport and lake phosphorus impacts. And we're going to wrap that up. We got some funding situations. The hope is that this could be funded by another NHDES 319 grant. The grants are opening in May or June for finalization, I think in September. And so we'll have all this done to input for that. So the funding shot will be prepared by what we're doing here. Now the other issue, unrelated to the culvert replacement, was the idea of dealing with some of the shoreland problems on Bailey Road heading east from the culverts. These photos show that's a bit kind of a raw situation. The town reconstructed Bailey Road not that long ago, did a good job of that, but there's a little bit of a raw situation all the way down through here where a little bit of sediment gets discharged to the lake over time, and that's not a good thing, and that adds potential for phosphorus as well. That doesn't help us too much. But the eroding shoreline, with the concepts, I'll jump right to this. We have a couple of concepts. They're called core logs, which are fiber, and they can be placed to enhance a shoreline, and that also encourages vegetative growth. And this is in lieu of riprap or rock treatments and that kind of things. They're more natural. And so we're looking at some of these alternatives, which would be possibly applied here to stabilize that shoreline. We're dealing with those, and we're putting costs together for those. So this, in combination with perhaps these orange blocks, are intended to be representative of perhaps rocks placed out here to break up the wave action and, more importantly, ice action against that shoreline over time. Although the reach of this is facing north and a little bit west, it's not the common reach for ice jams, which are a big deal down along 153. So some combination of this with perhaps some fibrous insulations with enhanced planting could be considered for stabilizing that raw shoreline along Bailey Road. And so that's what we're looking at as well. And I talked about Don Kretschmer of the Lake Services finishing up analysis of the impacts of these things on lake phosphorus, and he and Tom Ballestero are playing around with a couple of options that would affect increasing the flow out of the lake seasonally from time to time perhaps by possible modification of the dam operations to encourage more flow out of the lake, so therefore more flushing. Remember at the outset of my comments, we talked about there being not that much flow coming into the lake because the watershed's rather small. If we can operate the dam to encourage flow when it's not happening now from time to time. And I'm getting ahead of myself. Tom Ballestero needs to fill in the blanks on this because he has some ideas of that. And whether they be significant or not remains to be seen. But we're thinking about ways to enhance the water exchange in the lake that could improve or reduce the phosphorus concentrations in the lake. So we're going to wrap this up over the next 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and we'll have more to talk about, including cost estimates and what to do with grant applications. So that's a lot of information delivered quickly.
Bill, I've got a number of questions, just a few, but Chuck Fuller, he wasn't privy to the presentation, one of our selectmen, along with Tom Hott here. Chuck would love to ask you a question, so.
Go ahead.
When you look at the options you currently have in there for the 3 bridge designs, I know it's concrete I see in there from a design standpoint. I know in our snow road, we're going to use a laminated bridge, but there's a lot of discussion going around town that we ought to be using aluminum culvert bridges.
Yep.
And I didn't see anything in there that you have that even addresses that as a possibility. And I was curious as to why.
Yeah, thanks. It's a great question. We are looking at it, but I'm presuming. How do I explain this best? Because of the nature of the river, it's a so-called tier 3 or discharge, and the wetlands rules do not allow putting in an arch culvert or arch culvert with a bottom in it and burying the bottom with soil, which you could do for a smaller stream. But the DES regulations preclude that. So you're left with needing to put an arch which starts over here and gets over here. And to make that big enough, the arch would likely have to be too high and the road would have to come up quite a ways. So we're looking at that, but we think that the aluminum option, because of its roundness and the arch characteristics, won't be able to fit in the Bailey Road without completely changing the profile of Bailey Road. Whereas the concrete systems are rigid and don't require an arch for the structure. Does that make any sense to you?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so that has to do with the configuration associated with it, not so much the lifespan of it. The other characteristic is that the lifespan of aluminum systems is probably somewhat less because of long-term damage of collisions and so forth. But the primary barrier is probably going to be the geometric limitations at this location. If this was a much deeper situation, we could probably look at that a little more closely. But because of the limitations of the geometry, it may not work. But we'll confirm that.
Thank you.
Sure.
So Bill, I respect that you are trying to present the actual science and what in the real world is acceptable and works and doesn't with the rules and all that. I did take the liberty of asking pretty much the same question Mr. Fuller presented to your assembled group at our last meeting. And I know that this is not actual science, but the group seemed to tend to shy away from the aluminum. And I believe one of your members, James, seems to be the gentleman out in the field who probably has to walk through the marshes and under these things. And he made a comment just on his observations. So I don't want to mischaracterize anything. So you tell me if this is wrong or inappropriate. But James had suggested that in the field, in these streams, when you're actually in a water setting anyway, that the aluminum culverts that he was observing had a usable lifespan of between 20 and 35 years.
Yeah.
That came from your side of the table. I'm just repeating it. Was that an accurate statement? And
I think so. And you would talk the aluminum providers, the culvert providers, they'll justify a longer period because of the lack of deterioration of aluminum in the environment. But it's less than a concrete. We know that because concrete's going to be good for 60, 70 years if it's put in correctly. The other issues with aluminum are when you got some clogging. A log comes down the river and gets jammed in the culvert, that might distort the culvert if it's aluminum. And there are those kinds of things. So collisions and that kind of stuff would tend to limit the life over time too, in comparison to concrete. So I'm not really pushing for concrete from a lifespan thing, but qualitatively, the aluminum option, if it's feasible otherwise, probably does not have the longer life that a concrete structure has for those reasons. There's some debate as to what it would be, what the water chemistry is going to be, whether it's subject to collisions, and under ideal conditions, it might last close to the concrete, but under actual conditions, there are these other mechanisms for deterioration.
Right.
That's a long answer, but it's not definitive. I'm not sure I would put a 30-year life on it. I would say that the life is qualitatively less than a concrete.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, and I think we get the idea that the structure itself is not as rigid and
Right.
as rugged as other structures. So aluminum is a light metal. It's susceptible to denting and cracking and maybe weather freezing conditions.
Right.
There's a lot that
Right.
goes into dealing with metal.
Yeah, Mike, and that's true. But I think fundamentally we're gonna have a problem making it work geometrically, and that'll make it that'll be an easier argument to make.
Yeah, we were covering that with the other bridge that you observed, that where the flooding potential would be, because that's a 46 foot clear span that DES wants us to, allow the water to flow, and
Right.
an aluminum culvert doesn't seem to exist in inventory, and even if it did to fit that, like you said, we'd be raising the road significantly, 10 feet or more. So.
Yeah, and you haven't got the room to do that without retaining walls and all that kind of stuff. So.
And again, that's another tier 3 stream crossing, so it's just not
Right. Yeah. I mean, and DS has been, they'll show some flexibility on the tier 1 and tier 2 crossings. You can bury a culvert and with natural materials and put the bottom below grade, but they have a prohibition of that for the tier 3. And we haven't tested that, but they're saying no, it's got to be a natural stream bottom without burying.
Great. Well, thank you I know that's a little off the subject matter.
No, it's absolutely on. This is where we're at. We're moving on to what we think we can build based on what we know about the hydraulics and the hydrology. But the interesting thing to me, and I've tried to convey it here, when you deal with a normal stream, a brook that comes down through and then crosses the road, you got a crossing. The flow comes down, and depending how big the crossing is, the culvert, it might build up a little bit ahead on the upstream side, but sooner or later it gets through. So the flow coming down the stream is the same on both sides of the culvert. It may take a while to get through that, but the peak flow is the same. That's not the case here because it's actually a spillway to a dam. And if you look at it that way, the light didn't go on in my mind until about 3 or 4 weeks ago. That's what we're dealing with here. During high flows, when the dam, your little dam is not doing its thing, we're basically widening the sluiceway of a dam on Province Lake, and that the hydraulics don't act the same way as you would on a conventional stream crossing. And once that light went on in my mind, it all makes sense. And I think that's why we're talking about the increased flow with increased reach of the culverts. On a normal stream, you wouldn't increase the flow by having a bigger culvert. You just have same water going through. And in this case, you're going to actually increase the flow by decreasing the water level in the lake a little bit. So.
I do have a couple of quick questions, and then others may have as well. So my first thing I want to point out is the beaver with some dams downstream are potentially a benefit to some level with fish species and the aquatic passage. Is that?
At the culvert, yes. Assuming that they can get around the beaver dams themselves, but when they get to the culvert, the channel is flooded, so there's more water in the channel. That's right.
Okay, because that's always a thing for everybody here. We get very concerned about beavers in this town.
Yeah. Well, but at this point, I don't think the beavers are backing it up to the detriment of the crossing itself. In many cases, they do. They'll clog it, and you'll have flooding that you wouldn't have because of the beaver activity. The beaver activity, I don't think, creates flooding at Bailey Road, but at least in the configurations we've observed.
Okay, and thank you for that, because that's one of those things we see around town, the hazards of beavers typically. This isn't necessarily a typical situation, and I guess that's what I wanted to ask you as well. This lake, this project, this river has generated a lot of interest from several other companies and individuals that study it. It's fairly unique of a situation, our little lake, is it not?
Yeah, yeah. The more I learn about it, the more I realize how unique it is.
Wonderful. We
Yeah.
want to be known for something. Maybe this will be it. And with all of the information you're providing with some surveying results, the aquatic passage, the sediment transfers, and downstream flow rates and the flood models, that all does apply towards the wetlands permitting that work, does it not?
It does.
I was going to say that would be available for the next step. Whether you're involved or not, we could retain that information.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the parameters of what DES will allow in a wetlands permit, we're trying to get established right now, so that's not a question in the future.
Great. And then I bring that up because all that work is expensive and time consuming. So for others to understand that your project, it really helps leapfrog us into the next phase.
That's the idea.
Wonderful. And my only other question, and then I will let everyone else have that too, is the final report date. You said that may be out about 8 weeks. I worked with Sally Sewell and others, as you know, at the state level for this grant funding. And Sally said June to September is our window to apply. So any advantage in getting to the beginning stages of being able to get something in the works would be great.
Yeah.
Do you foresee mid-May perhaps, or
Yeah, I do. And certainly by Memorial Day, we should have this wrapped up in a draft report.
Great. And we will be doing another meeting with your group to.
We're done. Yes. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's the plan.
And I don't know if other members of the board or what's that?
Laurie has questions.
Okay, because I do want to point out real quickly that initially to get all this grant going and get accepted and pass through the governor's council and such, the town of Effingham partnered with Acton Wakefield Watershed Alliance for their support in writing letters, and the Province Lake Association, which is one of our nonprofits here in town that monitors the lake on multiple testing levels and spends a lot of money there, has secured grants for the watershed mapping that we would not have been able to do this project and get funding without a lot of the work that has been done by the Province Lake Association. So with that, Lori is the president of the Province Lake Association. A lot of pressure now.
Well, thank you. This was really interesting, and appreciate the opportunity to hear the presentation. So thank you so much for that. And I know there's a lot of work that's been ongoing, and we're very much looking forward to seeing how it evolves and what the final recommendations are. I think both Mark and I have a couple of questions. I'll put my question out there first. It all makes sense to me what you've described. I guess my one concern always is, given the historical issues we've had when the culverts were initially put in, is the low level flows and making sure that we're retaining enough water in the lake, particularly obviously during the summertime. And in this last year, in fact, even with the dam boards in, the water level never, during the drought period, was actually several feet out from where the dam was into the lake. So I think my question in a long roundabout way really is assurance on what the base level of the culvert will be, so that we don't run into a situation that we've had in the past where we actually drain part of the lake.
Yeah, let me share the screen again. Share. When we got going at the beginning, we one of our ideas was to replace the function of the dam with the culverts. Get tricky about how to do that. We dropped that. We think the dam should stay there. We think the dam should be the controlling factor during low flows, and to try to do that in combination with the culverts gets really tricky. And
Yeah.
I think risky. So the dam works, it's there, you know how to operate it, it does the good job. So the low level situation of the lake is going to be largely unaffected by the culvert.
Okay.
And so the dam is still going to control the lake at low flow situations. And if like during the drought last year, it dropped, that would be unaffected by the culverts. So you can imagine the culverts being essentially disassociated with a low flow situation. So whatever we have for the.
That was my concern, because last summer during the drought, there was a difference in water level across the dam of about 12, 13 inches.
Which way? Yep.
Well, because the boards were in, the level on the lake was higher than the South River.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So we're talking a low flow situation. If I had taken the boards out, the lake level would have dropped a foot.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. So yeah.
Which is not good for property owners, lakeshore owners, especially in the northwestern part of the lake.
Yeah. No. So during the drought, the dam didn't go dry, right? The downstream side of the dam did.
Yes, it did.
Okay.
There was no flow over the dam for about a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that. And
So
then
the dam was holding the level up, which of course the PLA wants.
right. And we think that's the best way to do it.
But the only thing I'm struggling with a bit in your modeling results, you did have one of your scenarios was, I believe, no dam.
That was just no dam, no culvert. The modeling scenario was we took the culvert out. There's over the road. We left the dam in on every respect. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're saying we should think about the bottom level of the culvert so that it during low flow situation, and we probably can. We have to think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that that's critical. I mean, the story is when they put the existing culverts in, the base level for the base of those culverts was too low relative to the base level of the lake. And they actually drained the lake such that the shallow area that's in the northwestern part of the lake, people, this is all hearsay, you could walk out 100 feet, 150 feet. So our concern obviously is with whatever we end up doing, we need to be able to maintain particularly the summer lake level as best we can. Now, this last summer, because of the drought, the dam wasn't even affected because the water level had receded so much. It was, lakeward of the dam, the little shoreline, but we certainly, and that you can't control.
No, you can't. No,
that's the extreme weather that we're experiencing. But to be able to at least have the ability to keep the summer low levels as sufficient as possible.
Yeah,
is really important to us.
and just to make sure we're saying the same thing, we are going to rely on the dam to do that during summer elevations, not the culverts. But you're
Yeah.
saying, make sure the culvert doesn't screw it up.
Yeah.
Yes, good.
Basically, yes.
All right, that's good.
Great.
To the
Got
point
it,
where
thank you.
it came out hearsay, this is hearsay because it's just coming from me. I was on the lake. I've been a lifetime, participant on property ownership around the lake. So in the year that preceded the installation of the dam, the culverts went in, and the lakeside, and we have a place called Butler's Field along 153. If you go beyond Butler's Field heading to the golf course, there's a shelf there that goes, you can walk out quite a ways. And the water receded tremendously from there. And it was just crazy. You could walk way out there and you were really not in the water much at all.
Right.
I experienced that. I had one of the early models of wave runners at the time, and traversed the lake greatly to get in closer than boats. And it was really devastating to boating and fishing and all those activities that year. It was not a good year. So,
Yeah.
do you remember that firsthand?
Yeah.
Or hearsay? Well,
A lot of angry taxpayers.
Yeah, and just one more comment from my standpoint. I'm thrilled to see that you guys are taking a look at that stretch of Bailey Road as well. I think, we share the same concerns that you and the town does, and that shoreline is pretty unstable. We've seen ice rafting along there in the winters. We get the lower levels in the summer, which is creating a lot of erosion along there. So I'm personally thrilled that you're taking a look at that, because I do think that's something that ultimately needs to be addressed as well.
Yeah,
So thanks.
it's a tough situation. Actually, we walk along there, and people on the north side have cottages and houses, and many people have created little ways down to the beach, and that's not helping.
Yeah, it's an issue. So thank you again. We appreciate the opportunity to sit in on this, and it's been very informative. And should you have any other questions too, feel free always to let us know.
Okay, awesome. Yeah.
Laurie, I just want to let you know, as part of the discussion that Bill and his group had, and we had Katie Zink from DES and Sally Sewell involved. And Sally was really targeting what can be done on the shoreline, as maybe there might be some potential funding out there for that as a kind of a standalone project. And with that, we were really looking to work with Acton Wakefield Watershed Alliance, because they were really the primary drivers for grants, but hand in hand, the Province Lake Association. So I think the discussions on how to move that project forward, we would be having direct discussions with yourself and the Acton Wakefield to see what could be done, because that's really outside the purview of the culvert, the process that the town is. Our core item is that. This is kind of an offshoot of it, and hopefully we can find a way to pursue it, but it is going to be more of a standalone item, just so that you know.
Yeah, and that's fine. I know that Sally and Awa right now are working on a grant for us for this coming year, which I think is going to be approved shortly. And we've already got some specific areas to do the best practices sorts of things along other parts of the shoreline. So I'm not sure that grant would accommodate Bailey Road this coming season, but I'm very comfortable that AWA and DES will submit for another grant if indeed we need that for, say, the following year to address Bailey Road. So we've worked with them a lot. It works really well. So totally get it that that's a standalone piece of this.
Okay, great. We'll look forward to working with you any way we can. Bill, I don't see any questions on this side, and so thank you for the
Sure.
60-minute, call it a half-hour presentation as it was scheduled for, so thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Well, you're more than welcome. I'm glad to meet with the rest of this group here and make sure everybody understands where we're headed. And it's been a very interesting project, and we're getting down towards the end of this phase of it, and we're very excited about what we're going to end up doing here.
Super. Thank you.
Good.
Thank
Okay.
you all.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care now. And this where the part in the outer limits would return control of our TV sets back to us. Everybody old enough for that one? Probably lost a few people in the audience. All right. Wow, that was pretty interesting. The whole presentation had a little more flavor because of the professionals that could speak to their part in the function that were available then. But I think Bill did a great job of presenting a summary of that.
Should we put that PDF up on the website?
I would think that would be great. And I know you mentioned something about our videos aren't again getting out from the meetings.
The weekly sessions?
Yeah.
Are we all caught up with all the meetings? I didn't see them all on there last week when I looked.
Yeah, there's a couple gaps. One of them I need to listen to carefully. I might have recorded a non-public. So I need, I don't know how to edit video.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
I wait until we have the minutes approved, then throw them out. So
Yeah, all right. So when I was in last week, I didn't see anything in March.
I think March 23rd is on there.
Okay. I'll go back and look.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that was a big one because March 23rd, if I'm not mistaken, we were addressing the bridge, the perceived options that really don't exist in the aluminum.
But I can get this one up right away and the PDF, this presentation.
Did Laura get a copy of the PDF?
Yes.
She did. Okay.
Yes. I think Bill sent it to everybody, and if anybody didn't get it, I think I might have sent it along.
did.
Okay.
I've been using her, a different email than you had, Mike.
Oh, okay. So, who had the wrong one? Do I
Well,
have?
I've been using the one, her work on President app.
Oh, okay.
Not the personal.
I see. I guess I missed that one. So, all right. We'll move along to, timing was good. I think we just got through, town administrator's comments, and if you're all set, Audrey?
I'm all set.
Thank you. We'll give it to Tom. Tom, we know you have some situations going on, so you probably don't have.
I really don't. I just, the street lights, I got the old dates I got the dates we're gonna put in. Like he just mentioned, I've had a family medical thing at home, so it's taken a lot of my time this past week. But I'm just, as well, I don't have nothing.
Family first.
If you have time to follow up anymore on that, great. If you don't, perhaps one of us, Audrey, Chuck, myself, we can take your work and follow up. And with that, it'll address the idea of payments. Right now, I'm not usually in favor of paying anything because we're not getting anything from them to tell us.
But didn't they come back and tell us the state wasn't interested in taking them over? Didn't you?
Right.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna owe the bill because we've been paying it and the state's basically not taking ownership of it.
But we want things shut off, and that hasn't happened. And also we want to identify which pole, that light fixture that cost a bunch of money, if we removed it, or which ones are free. And I think we're
That still
waiting.
isn't gonna affect the past bills. That's a going forward thing.
Well, my thing was that we requested these to be shut off and it was,
December.
and they're giving us hoops.
Well, yeah, but you're gonna pay to have them shut off. I mean, your
Yeah, but we
email
didn't
from
find
them.
that out till 3 weeks ago.
That's okay, but that's still,
So if you forward me your last email with them, I can take it from there. Okay.
Because I'd like to identify which ones can be, the fixture goes away for nothing, because we should have been able to get
Right.
rid of
That's-
those. And
that's
I think
right.
we could have a prorated situation. And I don't think we're gonna get money back if we pay full freight. And they have not been very cooperative. And that's we may end up paying the whole thing, but I want to keep some leverage in the conversation. And if they define, like you said, hey, we're keeping these lights, we'll pay for those lights. I'd love to give us something back, because this is, I know Tom's jumped through a lot of hoops trying to deal with them.
Yeah. Anyway, I got the dates. I know there was a question on about when you talked about the dates, it would matter if all the lights would cost.
Yeah.
I have all those dates and all. The only thing I gotta match up is the pole numbers
Okay,
with the lights. They want that to be sure. And that's what might have an issue going to the pole for pole to pole.
all right,
Okay.
Time restraints.
all right. If
So,
you,
But I'll.
I can take a ride if needed. I'll just take a day and travel.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Okay.
So we won't put you on the spot for
Thank you.
anything else, Tom. Best of luck on that situation. Chuck?
So, I said last week I'd follow up on the LRPC around propane pricing, and I did not get a chance to get to it. I will do that this week. The fire warden letter, I forgot to take it with me last week. I did run into Richard over the weekend. As soon as I get the letter, drop by the house, get the signature, no issues there. Audrey has found out that there's an issue with the cash register transfer station eating tape.
I heard something.
Chris had been our go-to person for that, because she really knew how to use that cash register. I'll stop in here tomorrow, and we'll try a couple of different things for the process elimination, like I'll just rip that entire roll of tape out, put it in a brand new roll and see if that does it, or.
One of the things I asked Mark was, did we change suppliers for the actual roll, the material that we're
Not
running?
since day one. I bought them off the internet day one. I bought like,
Okay.
what will probably end up being like 5 years worth of rolls.
Okay.
They had a very shiny paper, like the old fax machine.
It's gotta be, that's a special thing. That's what's gotta be in there.
Oh, okay, because I gave him some that weren't to try
Okay,
it.
That's probably not gonna
So
work.
I gave him supplies from here,
Okay,
but it was the shiny that had started getting eaten about 2 weeks ago. But they're very wise, because in addition to the cash
Yes.
register, they keep a manual copy.
the old way of doing things does pan out.
That's what happens when you get guys of that age. They will use technology, but I'm writing it down.
So did the new non-thermal paper work? Or is that eating it too?
No, it's, something's actually like slicing the edge off and shredding it. Something's going on.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right,
He-
well, I'll
he
take a
still
look, see if I
brings
can
them
come up
to
with
me,
something.
credit.
All right, are you gonna cover the new employee, Chris's replacement in yours, or?
Yes, I am. I actually have that here.
Good. I'll let
And
you
when
do that.
Audrey touched on some of that, it was like, hey, wait a minute.
Okay, next week, if we can, I'd like to add a public hearing at 10 o'clock to receive funds from Effingham Preservation Society for the Historic Town Hall project. So for those that weren't part of the last couple of years, the town and Effingham Preservation Society entered into a written operating guideline document for full transparency when funds are donated to EPS on behalf of the Historic Town Hall project. Those funds have to be requested by the town, a check is written to the town, and then the town actually pays the contracting bills. Under RSA, if the amount of money in that check coming to the town is over $10,000, we have to have a public hearing. So I'm going to ask we do that for 10 o'clock next week. There will be 5 contractors involved with the deposits around the contracting process, and the check will be for $43,860.
So I have just a question, because I'm aware of the RSA, but I cannot retain what the RSA actual number is.
It's actually right on the voucher. I didn't bring the voucher with me.
Okay, so that's the thing, it's probably to look at that just to make sure there's usually a timeline
It was the
of
secretary,
days.
this was the DOJ that pulled us together and gave us this document, so.
No, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the hearing date.
Oh,
Sometimes
the
it's,
length of notice?
sometimes it's 5 days, 7 day, 10 day,
All right, I'll
14
look at
day.
that, yeah,
So to set the date would be
Yep,
great, and we
yep.
can do that pending if you find out we need
I'll
to
look
do
at that
it.
today, yep,
Okay,
okay. Hold on, let me just make a note.
you keep me around for these obscure things.
No, that's an important one.
It is.
No. Yeah, the other alternative is to come up with 4 small checks, and I don't want to do that. So let's see, contracts have started to be prepared to go out for signature. They'll sign them, send them back, we'll sign them then. We're going to use digital signature on a few of them. I clarified after the last week's discussion you and I had, Mike, with the NHMA attorneys,
Mhm.
who basically said under one of the governor's executive orders, and I did not write that particular order down, but it's still in effect, they're allowing digital signatures. If that executive order was not in place, we could not do digital signatures at this point in time. So while it's in place, we'll work toward the digital signature. Apparently, there's also a bill somewhere in the state legislature to basically make that a permanent kind of thing with digital signatures, but it hasn't been passed by anybody yet. Any other questions on that particular item,
I would
other
just,
than my research?
I would just be, I think we should verify when that executive order would end, so we don't cross
Yeah,
the
no,
line.
yeah. Well, I'll go on the state website and look at it.
NHMA, because I saw the email, I think they might have actually referenced that order, so it.
They did, the order number's there, so I'll look it up and make sure that it's still in effect. If not, we'll go to wet signatures.
Well, my concern is like July 1st, it ends, and
Yep.
we're not aware of it, and here we go.
No, well, I mean, Chris Garcia, Cobalt Construction Management, the project construction manager, is actually putting together 4 of those and sending them out. One of those folks, I'm actually preparing the contract doc today. I'll bring it in later this week after I printed it, and we'll send it out of the office here out to that particular contractor. They don't do the digital thing in their particular company, so we'll just process that, and when those come back in, once we've signed them, then the amount of money we're talking about here will be the deposits for various materials and other things. So to give you an example, the copper price from copper caps has already gone up 40% since we started our discussion. They've already revised their quote.
Yeah.
So we need to get this in place as soon as possible so that we can lock in those material prices and we won't have any additional surprises.
All right.
As a result of that list that's gonna be doing the exterior work on the building, I did get an email, yesterday from LCHIP. They're submitting the approval for the first portion of the grant to be given to us, which is 50%, so we're gonna be getting a check for $82,500, to be able to work on these approved elements that are there. So between the donations at EPS and the grant check, we'll have more than enough money to take care of this exterior work.
Nice.
Also last week, I did a lot of stuff around the historic townhouse project. We've got new donor management software we're putting in place. I've actually redesigned and brought some creative ideas for the business website redesign. I'm working on the contractor agreement with Primex last week. A lot of back and forth on making sure we had certain elements of language, particularly around state of New Hampshire workers' comp, included in the document. So that was included in the document based on their note. I am attempting to do a follow-up for the FCC E-rate program to see if we can get a waiver to be included in the 2021 discount program for internet at the library. Haven't seen anything on that one yet. And it looks like that's all I have on my list, Mike.
All right, I'll keep you busy, huh?
Yeah.
Keep the kid off street corners. So, let's see. We got a number of things to discuss here. I wanted to follow up with Audrey on just if we've heard anything from Concord in regards to our signs. Should we receive anything there? I'll make the run down to pick them up, I guess.
I have it, I'll ask Barbara or Darlene to call.
Okay, that would be good. In case our emails, could be some confusion somewhere. And I spoke with Mr. Nason, Todd Nason. He does our landscaping. I mentioned it to you, but I didn't know if you had an opportunity to try and locate that contract.
No.
Okay, I guess we can try and find that when we have time. Mr. Nason seems to feel the existing contract would be fine. so he agreed to the same terms that we had for the previous 2 years. It's not a huge contract, so I don't see the point in putting it out. He was by far the lowest bidder. He's on file, and I think he did a really good job.
Since we've raised everything with Primex now, we're actually gonna need to use the contractor agreement we got with them. Going forward, any work we're doing, like the stuff we did down, we were supposed to get builders risk for the fire department, the transfer station. So I'm actually sitting in on a training program with them in about a week and a half regarding contracts and what we're supposed to be having within our system. They're adding builders risk into the existing policy of the town. It's a no charge add-on, but we have to fill out a document on every single contractor we're gonna be using and just submit it up there. So I haven't sent the document over to Audrey yet, but I will. But I mean, going forward,
Sure.
anything we're doing in construction of any kind, we're gonna need to do that. And anytime we're contracting with somebody, we're gonna need to use the base document.
Okay. Well, we can proceed under what we've been doing for God knows how many years, and then hit a point where we just update them or go back to the vendor and say.
His outline from last year,
Yeah.
we just attach it as an appendix
There
A,
you go.
and it solves what we need.
Okay,
Just change the dates from his end and sign it.
all right. We are, winter ended a little early this year, and we're at that point where our facilities need to be taken care of. And Todd also does work for us at the transfer station on the landfill cap. And in that report, there's some areas that I'll cover. This is another reason we need to have somebody like him, moving forward.
Available. Yep.
Right. So with that, I will tell Todd that he's good to stay in our employ, and we'll get that contract, and we'll keep his services going, even if the contract has to catch up. I should think we'll just extend the existing, theoretically, write a new one. So anyway, all right. Mention the 4/20, 1:30 p.m. meeting with vendors and road contractors. One of those items that we're looking to cover is on behalf of the fire chief. He'd like to get some estimates in for Firehouse 2. The big firehouse is for the parking lot. And that we can easily do, because we're looking at getting an estimate for you for the town hall, library, Masonic. What is the name of, whatever, get back.
It's the historic, what they've got in Concord is the historic town hall project.
Okay,
So that's their high level moniker for it. There's all kinds of sub monikers for it, but that's the big one.
the historic town hall project works for me. So for that endeavor, we'll be looking at getting some baseline estimates for grant writing, and of course, that parking lot will need to be dealt with. Let's see, following up on those things. Okay, so that's it on that page. I don't know, Audrey, if you have the number for the Mr. Josephson, who called on Partridge Cove Road the other day. I didn't have contact information for him when I talked to him. He wanted me to follow up on some FEMA things for mapping for FEMA because of the Ossipee Lake Dam. He feels that might have made an impact downstream for folks with their flood insurance. I just have no way of getting back to him so that he can tell me who he reached out to follow up on this. I don't know if you have any, because I don't think he sent anything in, right? That's official. And I went through the property
Were
roles.
you here when we handed you the phone or
I just,
something?
yeah, they handed me the phone and I talked to him. He says he's on Partridge Cove Road on the water frontage, which I believe there's 5 properties. I looked them up and there's no Josephson, so I'm like, I don't know who you are. Well, if he calls again then.
Okay.
All right, because I try to follow up with everyone who contacts me. And in that same vein, Gregory Tobin had called about things marking, delineating the roadway. He was gonna call in. He hasn't apparently been able to do a Zoom call with us to have his issues addressed. I think this one is such that I don't really want to have a one-on-one conversation on this particular issue. I think this is better that the whole board have weigh in, hear it, and outline the way forward. So if Mr. Tobin wants to be a part of this, he should contact us directly at a selectmen's meeting. And I don't know if you have contact information for him. I'm pretty sure I have a phone number, but I think everything should be kind of officially through the office on this one, like just general feeling. All right. Let's see. What else have I got here? I'm trying to follow up with Justin Chappie, I think it is. I have to dig through my notes for that one. Sorry if I wrecked the name. He's the rec department director over in Ossipee. Because of some communications I've gotten through Matt Sawyer, the town administrator over there, the increases that are being talked about for next year are quite significant on the program. I looked up the program online and I see some of these programs have a limit of participants. Once you hit that, you're out. So I wanted more follow-up on the available programs that will be coming forward. There's some that are free, some that come with costs, some that have some kind of a sliding scale because of other variables that come in. And I'd like to kind of get an actual number of how many Effingham children actually participate versus counting one participation. It's the same child numerous times over. They keep counting the participation. Do we have 10 kids going or?
But if they've got
200?
stuff going on at different time periods with
Right.
different coaches, each one of those should count as a separate.
Well, I guess what I'm looking to get is as much information on how that breaks out. And just throwing a number out, if we have 20 kids total that are in this program, no matter the level of participation, I think most people want to know that. That's the question that seems to continually be surfacing. So I have a number of questions, and if there are others that you would like to have asked when I catch up with Justin, that'd be great. I look forward to doing that because I do have some background information on warrant articles and funding for the program on the operating budget, and then I had some warrant articles that got put in there. So about I'm not sure what year though, that was either 2020 or 2019. 2020, the recreation department had appears to have had an operating budget of about $163,000, of which we are paying 10. And then if they have warrant articles for money on top of that, you could easily see where that could be a $200,000 program on a given year, and we're giving 10%. And if we're at a higher level of participation, I think they were putting us in the 22-23% range. You could be at the $40,000 and change. A targeted number Matt shared with me for next year was ballparking about $35,000. So I think that's a pretty big increase, and we need to be prepared to present something to the voters when we get to that subject. So with that post-closure report, Chuck, you had commented on, this is another one of those things that we do pay HEB Engineering to do for us. So a lot of the things in the report seem to be pretty standard, not a lot of changes. We're fortunate we have, we don't have to report on several things in detail at the landfill. One of those could be required as a survey of the height and depressions and stuff. Right now, we're allowed to still go on a visual effect. I followed up a couple of years ago on that because there was some confusion on that. So we don't have active gas monitoring. We do have the gas pipes, but it's a passive system. So all of these things get checked off and inspected by HEB. And we have some vegetation that Todd Mason had removed for us that was encroaching. It needs to be seeded, so I'll be asking him to do that this year. And there's some other area of minor encroachment that we'll have them address and then seed. There's also apparently some kind of a tarp or cover that's exposed. I don't know if that's actually something to do with the landfill. I'm hoping not. But with the site map that I've been provided, I think this year I'll find it. There were 3 monitoring wells that came out and really kind of said there was a bit of an issue. That's monitoring well 2S, which is completely behind the landfill. So if you are on the road that goes right by the landfill. You turned and you looked up, it'd be directly over the other side.
So it's the one closest to the river?
Yeah, well, it's also, with the grade dropping, it is the one right behind the landfill. So it's just what you'd expect. If things are breaking down and they're going downhill a little. So that was one of them. And the other one is monitoring well 3, which again, if you were looking at the whole landfill, it's to the back and off to the right some.
Kind of behind the shed area.
It is. It's not the
Further
one.
behind.
Right, exactly. Which is where we've had for years, the slope of the runoff of that driveway road area comes down and it pockets off the side of the landfill and it goes right there. So, some of this stuff it could be from all kinds of other activities and we're just directing it to the monitoring well to give a reading that may or may not be 100% accurate because of, situation on the ground. So, those are things that are being monitored and are a concern. There's been some levels that have elevated somewhat in those areas, and then there's other areas that have been decreasing. Some things that are staying relatively flat as far as no real movement. This will be and is a 5-year plan annually, and at the end of that 5 years, the state takes this data that we provide them, and they're going to come back with an analysis and say, this is what we want you to do if there's something else to be done, which may be monitoring wells off-site again, or if there's some way, and we have not really heard what those ways would be to deal with this. I think carbon dealing with it was through filtering through carbon, the last I heard. So this is all part of an ongoing process that at this point in time, we don't have any instructions to do anything other than what we're doing. But this report covers a lot of, basic descriptions of what we monitor for. There's the permit is in here from the state that we have to get an actual, it's a DES permit to operate and monitor. So we're in good standing, although there are some fluctuations. And with that, we started this in 2018. So, you have 18, 19, and 20. It's not a long history to go by. When you see that chart where everything bounces up and drops down out of sight or goes sky high, you know something's going on. Right now, it's a little early to say anything's really happening. We don't know how. So I wanted to cover that, and that's something that could be put on the website if you folks feel it's noteworthy. I think this one isn't a big deal versus like the CMA project here, which I think people in town would be a little more focused on.
Do we have previous years up on the site?
I don't honestly know that.
Okay.
I don't know that.
Where would it be? Transfer station? Where would it be?
I don't know.
What would be your guess if you were searching for it?
I
where
would
you go?
think that would be under anything that we post reports under from the selectmen, or it could be specific to the location, which would be the transfer station. Other than that, I think I might have to ask Teresa, and I'm ashamed to say it, but I never find myself really spending a lot of time going on the town website for some reason. I guess because I see everything here. So I don't navigate it well.
I'll check it out.
All right. I did go to, sir.
On the
Yeah,
testing,
fine.
maybe send that out to the wells that were tested in that area that we had done.
I wouldn't do that because the test results were supplied to folks there. It was made available. So this is just at the transfer station right now. It's not an offsite, and there's no significant increases that warrant like alarms. And I think you do more harm if you send things out and they don't understand the material. People would get concerned that we're trying to tell them something that we're really not.
Yeah.
It's everything is.
I'm thinking if we post it and somebody really needs to dive into something, that's a way for them to get it and then they can follow up on it.
Right, and for us to try and interpret that, I think we'd be way out of our depths.
Oh, yeah.
So I wouldn't want to do anything that unsettles people at this point. It's public knowledge, and I'm happy to have that available, and let people with more knowledge in that area, if they feel they can interpret that better, that's fine, or they can reach out to the state and share any concerns and have the state answer any questions. I think that would be the more appropriate way to deal with it. I met with the Conservation Commission last night. I went to their meeting and I did discuss several things with them. A quick overview of the snow bridge, which will slated to start on May 17th. You know, that's a target date. Don't live and die if it doesn't start exactly at 9 a.m. on the 17th. So I covered that. I covered the transfer station groundwater monitoring with those folks, and I gave them the presentation for reading last night, which I still have with me. They scanned through it on the Bailey Road project that we all heard this morning. And the real reason I needed to attend the meeting was this is the package with actual plans and site map that's in here for the overflow culverts that we needed to get an easement agreement with them. And they provided that last night, the signed letter of an agreement. And this now just needs to go to HEB to file with the state. And the other thing we need to do is provide the state a check for the ARM fund, which is Aquatic Resource Mitigation. It's one of the grant funds you can apply for, but whenever you disturb or anybody disturbs certain areas of wetland that can fall into this category, there's a charge for it. DES has a charge for dredge and fill and different things. So I'll supply this to Audrey after the meeting, and the office can scan that over, and that project, at that point, our permit will be operational. So this will be, again, one of the things we'll be speaking to Mr. Evans about.
And R&D, right?
And yeah, R&D paving is gonna be there because we have to patch that. Do you gentlemen have a couple minutes just to let?
I'm in no hurry.
Okay,
Take your time.
thank you.
Take your time.
It won't be that long, but plunge forward here. Recently, we had some turnover in the office. Some folks have taken other jobs. Good luck to them. And we had a nice little going away after hours party for Christine when she left, and that was nice. So we wish her well. In that, now we had some openings here. They've been filled, as well as earlier on, I don't think we ever mentioned that Barbara Savage came in and is a part-time employee who's helping with general office work for everybody, our assessing department, town clerk, tax collector, election registrations, the selectman's office. So she's really kind of floating all around the office doing 101 different things on any given day. So that's great that she's here. And then we had an opening in assessing as Glenn English had moved on. And Dave Hines has filled that. And I don't really know what you can say about his resume because he's worked at high levels throughout the state in assessing supervisory roles, project supervisors. He's worked with DRA, code enforcement. He just has a really great resume. He's been there and done that. And he's at a point in his career where he wants a part-time job and to fill the needs here. He's doing a great job. So people need to call in for the assessing department, talk to David. I'm pretty comfortable he'll be able to help most anyone out with their situations. And Audrey's nodding your head, so I guess that's Dave's doing all right. And beyond that, we had an opening again for Christine in the office, and Darlene McWhirter came to us, and we have hired her. And I hate to say as an office assistant because she's so much more than that. She was an administrative assistant, administrative secretary, both positions in the town of Tufton Borough for a number of years. She's a bookkeeper and a self-employed bookkeeper as well. She has those credentials behind her and uses Microsoft as well as some other, not Microsoft, QuickBooks as well as other platforms. We use QuickBooks here, so that's great. She has avatar assessing software background and using that in her jobs. She was the town administrator for the Tamworth for about 5 years or so, and an executive assistant there for a couple more years prior. So she is probably way overqualified for the job, but again, she's retired from the retirement system and wants a part-time position. So we're thrilled to have her here, and I'm sure she's going to make your job, Audrey, a lot easier with all the knowledge she brings. And hopefully that seems to be working out on day 2. So, so those are the announcements of staffing updates. And since the police department is here, and I think we really have covered everything else that needs to be covered today, I'm going to say that we can either do public comments, although if there's going to be a lot of people, which I heard there was a lot of questions, I think perhaps we probably should shut down and meet with the police department, gentlemen.
I'll work with that.
Yeah.
And then we
Is
come
it a
back
long,
on.
long discussion, do you think?
No,
Okay,
shouldn't be.
good, yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to non-public or?
Make a
Well, it's
motion, we're non-public.
okay.
I'll second that.
And that's, let's see, I think this is based on security issues. So, consideration, that would be RSA 91A:3, Roman 2I. That would be under emergency matters relating to preparation and carrying out of emergency functions, including training to carry out such functions developed by local state safety officials and to thwart deliberate attacks, property damage, loss of life. Otherwise, I thought there was one in here for security issues, which might be more applicable. Hold on. Where is that? My. I know that there was one in here for discussing matters of security, which I would think this is. And we may have to alter what the reason we came in here for is, in case that we missed something, because there's some letters not listed on our little cheat sheet between E and I. So until we get a breakdown on 91A that's a little more complete, I'm going to say that we'll stay with the motion I made. We may have to amend that afterwards to be a little more focused. Sorry, world. We're small town and we're bumbling through this. So, all right. So you made the motion. Did you
I second it.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Roll call vote, please.
All right,
Cahill and I.
and when we come back into public, we'll do the open
Public comment.
public comment.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry to those who've been so patient for so long. We'll try to get this done. What are we talking, 10 minutes?
Probably, if that.
Okay, so we'll shoot for about 10 minutes or so, folks. Thank you. And with that, if Audrey can, I don't know, put us in a green screen, muted mode, whatever you can do.
Okay, we're back.
All right, we're very sorry that took longer than expected. Generated some questions from the board for the officers, so appreciate everybody who has been able to stay with us. And we will take your comments as soon as we enter back. I should have done that first. I make a motion to enter back into public session.
I second that.
Fuller, aye.
Okay, Cahill and I, and with that, there's no need for sealing minutes. I think this is going to be an open discussion at some point. So, David, would you agree?
Okay.
All right, so with that, back into public session we are, and we'll address the concerns of the public.
First up.
They need to raise their hands. Okay, the Leonard family. Okay, go ahead.
Well, hello, guys.
Good afternoon.
I assume that's Leanne?
Yes, it is.
Oh, hi there, Leanne.
Hi. So I have several questions. Some of them are going to come from me and others are going to come from other residents in town. I will address who I am addressing the question to as I go along. The first question I have is for Aubrey. When will the minutes or the videos of previous Board of Selectmen meetings be posted? As I see online, I am only seeing February 17th, February 23rd, March 9th, and March 23rd. There are several minutes and videos missing.
Leanne, first off, I kind of was talking over to you on some of that, but as far as the questions you want to ask us, you said you're going to represent others?
Well, not so much represent others, but they had given me their questions, so I am going to address them as myself.
Okay, so these are your questions.
So they will be coming from me. Yes.
And I think even though I was kind of talking to try and get some clarity there, I think you're trying to establish why we have not, we're not up to date on some of the selectmen videos.
Along with minutes, correct.
Along with minutes. Okay, first I've heard about the minutes, but Audrey, would this be something you would prefer to address on the, for the video postings?
I believe we can post all except March 16th by the end of this week. It shouldn't be a problem. And the minutes, I just have to see what's missing from the website.
Okay,
So I'm not up to date.
so I don't know if you heard that, Leanne, but I'll restate it. All except for March 16th will be available or should be available on the website. If they're not there now, Audrey will get them posted in short order. We did have a problem with our computer systems a few weeks back because of a transition to new computers. And in getting those set up, there was some ability was lost to post originally. Our computer, the folks we contract with came in and worked with Audrey, and apparently that's been resolved. And Audrey will be looking into what minutes have not made it onto the website and correct that. The minutes for the March 16th, we may have a bit of a hiccup in that potentially some non-public discussion may have been recorded, and that needs to be removed. We can't post it. Yeah, so it has to be edited or chopped off at that point. So she may need some time to establish the proper way to deal with that. So those should be coming.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. My next question would be, who is in attendance today?
Chuck Fuller?
Bob Hart,
Mike Cahalan, and do you mean just specifically board members or
No, anybody who's in the room.
in the room? The three of us and Audrey Frazier, our town administrator.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. How come all of the other meetings, we had a budget committee member in the meeting? With that said, he is just a regular citizen, just like the rest of us. He's not a paid employee. So with that being said, on March 2nd, I had addressed if I could attend the meeting, and I was told that I could make an appointment to be on the agenda to be public to the meeting. If the meetings are going to be open to selected committee members, could I make an appointment to attend all the future Tuesday meetings?
I don't know who told you that you were going to be able to come in person. If that was what was related to you, that's not correct for what we're doing at this time. And as to the idea, are there exceptions to come in and speak with the board? Yes, there are. Dave Strauss, the chairman of the budget committee, is typically here for a purpose to participate with the board on matters, or we may have questions for him, or we are trying to clarify with Dave to represent to the budget committee issues of expenses that may be being tweaked that weren't part of the original discussion on something, so that the budget committee is informed because there were changes that were required to be made. Other than that, we bring in the fire chief often because he represents the town in other fashions like Dave Strauss does for the budget committee. We bring in the police who are just here We've had the emergency management manager for Action Ambulance and one of his employees come in to address us because there was some things to be talked about in public and non-public. So typically it's specific to somebody's involvement with the town processes, an elected official, an employee, a vendor that has information that we need to communicate with in person. With that, we are very much anticipating somewhere in probably June that the state will, the authorities that, you know, the governor's office or whomever will probably say that the opportunity for the members of our population, the public, have had that opportunity to be vaccinated fully. And with that, these restrictions would be lifted. We're looking forward to getting the doors open and having folks come in. We do not want to be the responsible parties for having somebody come in here and spread a virus to others and shut down the town. We're a very small office here. So as soon as it's a green light to act responsibly, to bring people in this room, we very much want to establish going back to business as usual before COVID. So as soon as we know, you'll know.
Okay, with that being said, it's my understanding that OSAP is open when they have their Board of Selectmen meetings. So where are you coming off with the green light from the state? I think what you're saying is that the three of you have made the assumption that we should continue to stay closed, or I'm confused.
Yes, the three of us have made that decision. What other towns do is really not our primary driver. We're doing what we feel is best for this community. Other towns, everybody else has different viewpoints and varying levels of comfort. We also have a workforce here that would like to stay safe. We bring them into the discussions when what they feel that they want to be exposed to. We're open door for the policy. We have people come in the lobby to a point. The town services are being available. Nobody's not getting service for every function that the town office offers. And with that, we are looking for the point for the green light that I say to be when every member of the public has had the opportunity to get vaccinated should they wish to. And once everybody has been declared that that option has been out there, and whether you choose to exercise it or not, it was available. That's not the case at this point. Members of this board actually have not all been vaccinated, and in which case we don't see that we want to bring people in, not only for our safety, but for the other people we interact with in the community or in this office specifically. So again, you know, probably June is what we're hoping for, but it is, as you stated, our decision, and that's what we decided to do.
Okay, so if the mask mandate is lifted, and you're still continuing to keep us out the building, can we hold a vote to hold the venue at a different location where you can have members of the public attend?
A vote, and what that venue would be, I don't know what that would be, but
Even if it was just outside, I mean, for goodness sakes, I'll open up my backyard. I mean, anything just to be able to get us to stand in front of the three of you instead of through a computer screen or a telephone or talking member to member, resident to resident, you guys hearing hearsay, us hearing hearsay. I think it's about time that we're able to all stand at some point face to face to address our issues.
well, I don't know about hearsay. We hold the meetings and hopefully that's getting out. Like you stated, there was a disruption in getting these videos out, and even if we're not very visible to people, the audio, we do address emails, phone conversations, and we entertain people who will call in like yourself for public comment. When the state lifts a mask mandate, that's probably going to coincide with our ability to open the doors. As far as having a vote to hold meetings on another location or whatever, that's really not how that's going to work. I don't believe. I believe this is solely that this at the discretion of the Board of Selectmen because there's an executive or emergency orders in place which governs how meetings such as this take place. So with those mandates, that's what we're referring to for what tells us what our authority is in doing business this way. So if the state, the powers that be say, you know, you've got to hold public meetings with the members of the public coming in and this is no longer a satisfactory way to communicate, then, you know, we're going to have no choice. But I don't believe that that has happened yet. So again, we're going to try and hold the line with the vaccination policies. And once people have had that opportunity to decide whether they want to be vaccinated or not, and it's been across the board, then we're going to open the door.
Okay. Where can I find the agendas for each of these meetings that you guys have held since February of 2020?
I don't think they're posted, but are they, Audrey? What's our policy on
They're
that?
not posted, but they're available. I could email them.
There's something you could email.
Yes.
There's no good way to, I mean, our website's getting very busy, so it's hard to probably post an agenda. And that's pretty fluid, right up until Monday, isn't that? Tuesday morning, really?
Yes, sometimes Tuesday morning.
Yeah, so the agenda, outside of having certain bullet pointed discussion points, it doesn't usually get filled out until Tuesday morning. And we see them when we come in and sit down, actually.
I mean, we could post a template, you know, the numbers 1 through 14 without the
Right.
details behind them, and that would work.
Yeah, we could do that much. Did you get what Mr. Fuller just said?
Yes, I did. I heard him. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, the unfortunate thing is we could just give you the template, but we wouldn't be able to really provide the issues that are going to end up in the file folders for us to review. Like we can't make that happen on Friday or Monday so that people would be prepared for the meeting pretty much any more than we are.
I heard her ask for historical ones, and
Oh.
Leanne, if you wanted to repeat those dates, we could send them out.
The regular minutes that I was requesting would be February 2nd, February 9th, February 16th, March 2nd, and March 16th. And that would be written minutes.
Written agendas.
Well, the written agendas and the written minutes was what I was requesting.
The minutes will be on the website when they're available, but I can email you the agendas.
Okay, so if I was to put in a 91A request, would I get those in 5 days?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So then my next question would be, where can I also find the work session minutes?
Those work session minutes are usually posted on the website as well. And I have to admit, I didn't realize that we had such a backlog of minutes that weren't posted.
Me neither, I have to look though.
Okay, so
I thought they were done right up until Christine left, and I've been doing double duty till yesterday. Sometimes triple duty.
right, no. I've got that. So I don't know if you heard that, but I'll just reiterate that we and the board, we didn't realize, and so thank you for bringing it to our attention, that there's been a lag in these postings on the minutes. I think what may have happened is when Christine Holbrook left, we had a gap in staffing. And so Audrey has been pretty busy with a lot of significant weighty items to deal with, like trying to get the videos taken care of and computer issues here to run the town. So I think this one might have fell through the cracks. And to that extent, we are very sorry, and we will try to fix that. We have additional staffing now, so we'll get those minutes posted as quickly as possible.
Perfect, thank you. My next couple of questions are in regards to the transfer station. From my understanding, the transfer station, there is no soliciting. In the past, I have noticed that there has been some Board of Selectmen members standing there talking about petitions or votes or upcoming elections and whatnot. Shouldn't those petitions become invalid since there is no soliciting at our transfer station?
Well, soliciting, I think, would be selling things. In the past, we have had people at the transfer station, as long as they do not hamper the flow of people, and that's generally mark of the transfer personnel, would usher anybody, selectmen, whomever, off to the side if there's a conversation that needs to move away. So from that standpoint, we've had electioneering there, typically for state representatives on down that are competing on the local level, allowed into the transfer station for those kind of activities. Soliciting in the true sense of the word and selling products or something like that, we don't allow that. And the warrant article or the petition warrant article that you are referring to actually will not be on this year's warrant. So as far as it needing to be nullified, it's not a qualifier and will not be on the warrant anyway. So I guess that might be a point that's doesn't need to be made for this go round.
Okay, perfect. And another question about the transfer station. What is the little shed that we had built at the entrance of the transfer station, and what is that there for? It's not being used. Is there a standpoint behind that?
I wasn't on the board, neither were these other gentlemen when that structure came into being. There was a point in time when an attendant was stationed up there for the primarily to check stickers, permit, the stickers for the permit access to the facility. At some point that was done away with, and felt that it was more useful to have individuals down at the transfer station in the area of where, you know, things were being processed and tossed away and such, helping the public. So that little structure has served to store implements of rakes and shovels and stuff like that. It's just another shed that houses things that the transfer station attendants tend to use on occasion to clean the facility up. So that's all that's going on there at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. My next question for the transfer station would be, I don't know if it's really a question, I might be more of a statement, but why is there 4 attendants at the transfer station when they're avoiding to help anybody due to COVID? Do you think there's space that we could cut funds on that?
Well, to the transfer station attendants, we have a certain attrition of age that we expect, or because people have, we've had people out for surgeries. We have one employee who's now taking less hours, so he's not putting in the full amount of hours others were, or that he was before he cut back. We have one of our staff has a spouse with some medical needs that take that individual out of the rotation for a goodly amount of his work hours, his previously scheduled work hours. So although you may see the 4 people there from time to time, they're not all there all the time. And with that, there's certain things that they do, taking care of the metal that comes in and disassemblies. There's processes that they do for work on site that isn't necessarily directly helping folks unload or monitoring what gets thrown in the various dumpsters or whatnot, because there's things we can't have go in there, or it's going to cost a lot of money if the wrong thing gets into these containers. So right now, the function of the staff is fluid. And we also now give vacation time to staff. So some of that is back staffing for when vacations are used. We give 2 weeks at the scheduled rate, scheduled hours that they've been allotted for the budget. And I would say that when I came on the board in 2018, the budget that was in place when I came on was $18,000 higher than the next year because I slashed $18,000. That was what I put out to the other board members at the time. From there, I brought in another contract. It had some cost savings in taking glass. So we made a lot of operational changes that actually have been financially effective. And part of that was getting fees installed on the transfer station to stop some unwanted dumping that we believe was taking place in Effingham, because we were the only town around that didn't charge for certain things. So we saw a good drop in those kind of charges for demo and whatnot. That money has come in. So we have a positive effect in about the first year. I believe we were over $24,000 of revenue stream in, all while cutting operational costs, including giving higher salaries and bringing on staff. So operationally, the transfer station is doing better financially to operate than the day I came into this position. So I'm in favor of keeping the staffing in place. Those decisions go through the other board members and the budget committee. And there was open meeting forum for those to be people to call in like you're doing now. And nobody attended the hearings or the public hearing or the meetings to complain about the transfer station or its staffing. And every other contact I have had or have known about has been very supportive of the staff and how they help the public down there. So this is the first that I've seen anybody addressed as a problem or a perceived problem.
Well, it's not really that I'm addressing a problem or a procedure problem. I am just stating and asking why there was 4 of them. It's nothing personal against any of them. They're all great. They greet me. They're wonderful. However, I was just inquiring why there was 4 of them if they cannot help anybody due to COVID at this time.
Well, right now, due to COVID, they help people as best they can while distancing. They take funds in. They oversee what goes into certain things, like, occasionally people want to throw motor oil into the demos. So they have to be at multiple locations to keep an eye on things just the same. It's just, we feel there was a need for staffing. And again, I think that the hours, there's some reduction in hours this year. It's more so than last year. So we have 2 individuals with greatly reduced hours at this time. So to provide staffing for the 3 days that we're open and to cover all the bases, this seems to be the staff level that we need. And that's always open for review by the board, input from the budget committee. And if the transfer station staff themselves didn't feel there was a need to have the level of staffing, we would probably be hearing some of that. We did go for a period of time with a vacancy. There were 4 people. It's just that one individual was 10 hours a week, but somebody left. And our pay scale was such that nobody took the job for about 2 years or so. So we are actually backfilling a position that maybe some people are thinking is a new position. There is more hours with that position, but it wasn't truly a new position.
Okay, well, thank you.
Sure.
My next question would be, or maybe, as I said, more of a statement with a question at the end. All 3 of you are aware that if you get together at a residence or outside of the building or inside of the building or through telephone conversation or email, that stands for a quorum, and the public has access to those email minutes or etc. You had stated earlier that there was a meeting with about 8 people for the bridge. You also stated that there's going to be a meeting on April 20th at 1:30 for the road things. Are those all going to be public knowledge? Is there somebody there taking minutes? Is somebody recording those? If you go outside of the building to have a meeting with any of you, that's public knowledge.
Well, you're right and you're wrong. So let me address the parts where you had specific considerations. One was the meeting with 8 people, and that was attended by myself in a Zoom meeting with the town administrator. So there was no board quorum and there were no other members here simply because other things fell through the cracks and nobody realized we didn't post for that meeting a notice, to which case the public could have been a part of it just like today. So the other
Okay,
members, this was my project and they felt I should be here to represent us. So they did not attend. Now, the meeting on the 20th is a on-the-road meeting, which is standard fare for the jobs we do here. It'll be posted. We're going to go out across town and look at things. We did this before with Mr. Meisner, Mr. Espy, and myself when we did Green Mountain Road, when they were looking at that first phase. We would go out and we were looking at the culverts to be replaced, the roads, the different considerations. It's posted. We're going to be out there. It might be difficult for people to follow along, but it's a public meeting. That's where we are. And a synopsis of minutes can be certainly supplied from the outcome of those meetings. And typically that's what does happen in my experience. There is a summary of minutes for those interactions. They tend to be rather vague. We're not going to say this culvert was this big, it's this long, it has this much damage, and catalog the whole thing. It probably is going to be summed up in a road review. But anyway, to the point where I think you may misunderstand the RSAs, if there's a conversation that is with, say I'm talking to Mr. Hart outside in the parking lot because, you know, the Red Sox are playing, and I really think the starting lineup.
oh, I totally understand that. That is
We
just,
could attend a function somewhere in town. We could go to an auction, for baked goods and comment on the baked goods and be there. If we're doing town business, that's a thing. If we're not conducting town business, then we have the same liberties as anybody else to have a discussion about other things. I know that the evening you came down with some folks, I had got back to me anyway, that one of the neighbors felt that I was in a conversation with Mr. Hart outside here, when actually it was the reporter from the Conway Sun-Times. Mr. Hart was off the property. Mr. Fuller had left out the other door. So sometimes the rumor mill likes to say things that are happening and they could potentially be inaccurate, as they were in that case, because town business is conducted at the town or through these meetings. So I don't know what you'd be referring to. If there's some specific violation that has taken place, you'd have to bring it to my attention because I'm not aware of it.
okay. Nope, I was just, stating a statement at that point. That prior to the beginning of the meeting, your phone was going off and you had said, this is me conducting some town business with some town residents. And then it had gone off again. And you had said that, it was our police chief, Joe Duchesne. And then you had went on to say about, the part-time officers with the uniforms and whatnot. And that's, you like to conduct some business with people through your cell phone. As you just clearly stated that that's not the case. So I'm a little confused as it was brought up at the beginning of the meeting.
So let me clarify. I am contacted and it is just a direct contact with me. That's not the whole board. So that is in public disclosure. The conversation about uniforms was from something inside the town's manifest here that we all reviewed, and it was a bill. As far as the conversation about the phone going off, Mr. Fuller stated to me, and Chuck, at any time, anything I've said, you guys don't agree with, jump in. Mr. Fuller said something about the phone and that perhaps it's a silent setting or whatever. My comment back was that I don't typically shut off the phone at these meetings because I tend to find that oftentimes I'm sitting here and it's some form of town business that I should be taking the call. And one of the cases would be that our road agent may be out on the road and doing something today and needs some guidance, or he says something about what we need to be doing today. And I need the other board members as well as myself to make that decision. So I answer this phone, I see a text and I say, hey, they want to lift the weight limits today. What do you think? They're out there. And then the board can address that. So I take those calls, and today it was quite simply the same kind of thing. It was our police chief who had an issue that he'd like to discuss in non-public, and his sergeant was in at the same time. And the two of those individuals needed to speak with the whole board. So all I did was to say, yes, we'll see you towards the end of our meeting, and that was it. So it wasn't anything it was a shared thing. There, you know, at that point, I shared that piece of information. If you called me up and said, we have a massive sinkhole out in the middle of Plantation Road, I would take that call. And at that point, if I'm not in this meeting, I would likely either go verify the situation or call our road contractor to see if he could get somebody out there to verify that we have this situation and then take the appropriate action. I get lots of calls of trees down, trees on wires, you name it. There's a lot of things. It doesn't stop. We're a little town, but surprisingly, it's going 24/7. So somebody's got to take the call. When it comes to liaisoning with certain vendors, different people have that responsibility. They've been designated by the board to at least be the one to make first contact. And if it needs to be followed up on, that individual brings that to the board. Mr. Hart's working on a number of things to do with signage around the town and our roads and the public utilities stuff. And he was the guy in here making sure the installation of the new boiler went according to plan. Mr. Fuller carries a lot of other things around that he does. The town hall library, he reaches out to the folks around the town on different things. He's often out there looking for the beaver issues in our culverts and stuff. Everybody's got a whole bunch of roles that we play. And those calls can be directed to any one of us, because that we've been tasked to deal with that situation. And if it's something we can make a decision on without needing to involve the rest of the board, we do. Oftentimes it's something we have to bring into the rest of the board and say, how do you want to deal with this? So it's just a conducting of business. There's no secrecy. I think we're an extremely transparent board. We put things out at town meeting in a way that's complete, that's never happened before. Our budget meetings, when we go to the budgets, we lay everything out. If anyone ever asks a question, it has been answered, no matter how small and detailed. When we do bridge projects and things, we post all of the engineering reports online on our website, photos. Never have we had projects being so well categorized or cataloged, I'm sorry, and then made available to the public. So again, if there's something specific that somebody feels we're not doing, that we should be doing, you know, we want to hear it, and maybe we can accommodate.
Well, thank you for explaining your reasonings. Moving on, my next question would be, my question is what keys do each of you have, and what doors inside the municipal building do they open?
Can you repeat the question, Mike? I couldn't hear it.
The question was, what keys do we possess as select board members, and what doors do they open? We don't all have keys to, say, the library. We could, and we probably should, but we probably don't choose to. I don't. Chuck doesn't have it.
I actually have a key to the front door to get into the Masonic Lodge, but that's something Lenny and SB and I dealt with 2 years ago.
Okay. And
Excuse me, Mike, not to cut you off, but I was talking inside that building. What keys do you have?
Okay, sure. We have access to, I'll tell you what we don't access. The corridor out here where the windows are for the town clerk's office and the tax collector in the selectman's office, that whole corridor through the door that's to my left and to the main hallway, we can't get in there. We don't have keys to that. We don't have keys to the offices. We could, I think there was a time in the past when selectmen did have access to that. Tom came along and this was our process. When Chuck was elected, we've had this conversation. My position, and Chuck agreed with it, was that we do not want to have the keys to that area. We do not want people thinking we're getting in there and accessing things when staff's not around, or that we somehow could do anything that people can dream up that we could be doing. We just plain don't have access to that area, and the only way we're in there is when there's staff here. And that's the way we want it. So there again, that's that transparency. We're not doing anything in those offices without the staff. And at that, the staff generally either directs us to or provides us with any documentation if we're in there and we want some records on anything.
So the answer to the question is we have one key, the front door and the back door to the community area, not to the office.
Right, the utility room, the kitchen, the kitchenette, the bathrooms, the very front hallway area and this meeting room. But none of where all the records and all the real work takes place, we don't have access. And we don't.
Perfect, thank you. So my next question would be for Tom or Chuck, whoever would like to answer this question. Why does the board choose to meet at such an inconvenient time that it, blocks people who have jobs away from attending? Do you have any plans on going back to 6 p.m. Tuesday meetings?
So this is Chuck, from my viewpoint, I don't have an issue with the morning meetings or even early afternoon meetings. I would shy away from evening meetings. There is a core group, as you just stated, that because we changed to the morning, they can't get here because they're working. That's also true of people that had capability during the day to come in, but couldn't because we only had a night meeting and they were working a second shift or third shift. There's never going to be a perfect balance with everybody being able to get access, but we got to get the business done. And some of our meetings go 3 and 4 and 5 hours, and I'm not interested in starting a meeting at 5 and getting out of here at 11. I'm just not going to function that good at that late hour.
And I know this wasn't directed at me, so Tom, do you mind, or would you like to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with the morning meeting. I don't mind it. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't want to be here till 11 o'clock at night. Like you think today's meeting started at 9 o'clock. Now it's 1:45, which is no problem. But if we had it at 5 o'clock, we'd be getting out of here till 10, 11 o'clock at night. I don't know. I'm happy with the morning meeting, but that's just my opinion.
So with that, again, I know this wasn't directed at me, but there's some logistical things that prompted the change that didn't come up. This change to mornings came amidst the COVID situation. And with that, people weren't coming in. Other board members preferred to come in the morning. I prefer the 5 o'clock personally because I'm not a morning person. That said, it also helped with the staff because the staff has their job during the day on a Tuesday, and they were already in the building here and could take minutes and be available, and we'd have access to the records and such. When we go to the evenings, a lot of time we don't have staffing available, or we now have to have people staying here with us to whatever late hour there is. And these folks also need to get back in the morning for their regularly scheduled office hours that they normally, pre-COVID, open the doors for and greet people like yourself. So one of the things I would like to see happen if we remain on, no matter what time frame, is we pursued in April of last year. I was very adamant. I wanted a video set up here, so with video and audio. We got what we got initially, and it took an ungodly long amount of time because of internet capabilities and various things to get just to the level we're at now. We understand that better audio and a better picture to get us closer views to the public, especially if we want to hold something up and display it. Those are all in the works, something we want to pursue. no matter the time frame. But trying to message and get communications with the public is our absolute weakest point in all of this operation. So there's nobody here that wouldn't like to be able to have more direct communication or get our messages out with the public than the three of us. Because we've got a lot going on. We're a very busy board. We've got a lot of projects in the town going on. We've got a lot of grant funding. We think we've had a lot of good successes, and we have a lot more that we're looking forward to providing. So we'd like people to know about it. We don't want it to be a secret that the bridge is going in, it's scheduled to go in May over at Snow Road, or that this Bailey Road culvert, the presentation you saw today, that we could potentially get 40% funding for that project, or that we have long-range projects planning for the replacement of Granite Road Bridge and Hutchins Pond Bridge. We'd like to talk about those things.
So do you think maybe at some point we should get everybody into a parking lot? So before town meeting, you can stand face to face and tell the people who don't have internet access or don't have a telephone in the town, everything that's going on?
Wow. You know, I really don't know if that's going to be something we can do.
Why not?
I've been doing this stuff now for the town for 11 years. And I remember so many attempts by different boards and such to get people together to message, whether they were board members or the public. We put on pizza parties and stuff to try and get people in to join boards and become part of the process. And one lady came down one night for pizza because she heard they were having pizza here, and she just lived down the street. Nobody else showed up. Messaging is the problem. We could stand around for 4 hours and invite everybody to a big open field, and I'd be surprised how many people would show up. I think if we hit 10, that'd be pretty amazing. We have held hearings.
Public hearings out here this past year.
Yep, two people showed up. And there were occasions that nobody showed up. So we basically have tried the outdoor format and tried to get people involved, and nobody shows up, Leanne. That's just unfortunate, you know, but that's been the case.
Okay. I would think at this point that there would be a lot of people in town that would love to be able to stand face to face. I mean, since Tom has been in, he has not had anybody inside the building. You know, I think it's time that some of the people can get out there and address some of their concerns and, you know, just ask questions and not have to go through other people to try to get questions answered.
Well,
I mean,
you know, there's email and there's calling in like this. If people can't be available for the meeting, they can email those questions. We address them.
And there might be a misconception, Leanne. The Zoom meeting is both a video, if you've got an internet, but it's also a telephone conference call. So anybody can dial in, call in, and be part of the meeting. They won't have the Zoom feature if they don't have internet, but I think pretty much everybody's got a phone.
well, I'm sure that's the case, but you know, as you guys stated, the office is closed because the elderly population in town, you know, we're trying to keep them safe and whatnot. A lot of elderly are set in their ways and would like to actually walk into the building. I've attended a lot of Board of Selectmen meetings in the past, as Tom and Mike both know. And I might be the youngest one there. So a lot of the elderly would like to get out and actually get in there and ask some of their questions. Yeah, they could call in. Yeah, they could Zoom in. Some of them they might have a telephone, but might not even know how to gain access to a Zoom call. I do know that there's several people in town who have internet that can't gain access to your Zoom meetings. There are several people in town that gain access and can't hear anything. Is there microphones? I know there was previously. Why aren't we connected to some microphones so maybe the people can hear a little bit better? You know, there's so many different things. We could all go back and forth for hours about this. However, I really feel that you guys should take the time to, instead of having the option for Zoom or telephone, to really just think about requesting people to even sit in the parking lot while the 3 years sit in front of the door. Anything, just to get some people out there to ask these questions face to face. I think it's important. And you guys know it just as well as I do. We cannot continue this forever.
Well, I think Mike made it clear earlier, Leanne, that we're looking at a June timeframe when pretty much the world has had an opportunity to become vaccinated.
I understand that, but with our meeting happening and voting on May 11th and the meeting shortly thereafter, there is people who do have questions that would like those to be addressed before opening up in June. I think getting a meeting with the three of you sitting in the front, having people show up, ask their questions, and make a meeting outside, even if there's only 4 people who show up, it's the 4 people who are there that have questions for you. We can't always expect to have 30, 40 people. Look forward to the 4 people who are going to be there that really are going to make a stance and ask some questions directly instead of hiding behind a computer screen.
Well, then, the hiding behind the computer screen comment aside, when we address the 4 people outside, we need to make that meeting available to everybody else on a computer screen.
And we can't do that.
So we can't do that because we don't have the technology. It's the same with the microphones. We have some microphones, but they're not compatible with the system we have in place. Hence, we would like to try and upgrade our system. Just how fast and how much money we're going to spend on certain things because we've been put in a position of being reactionary due to this virus. Do we have a plan to make the situations perfect to address everything the way everyone would like? No, we don't. And I'm not sure that there's any way to actually do that. Certainly, you have an opinion. And for those other people you seem to feel have a like opinion, being of an age, whatever, they can call up with questions and have us address them. These do go out and will be available, these meetings, so that they can be accessed. If they can't be accessed at their location, potentially they could be accessed at somebody else's home or the library. We are doing what we can. I don't feel that we're hiding behind the computer screen because, as you say, you've attended selectmen's meetings, and I have never been the shrinking violet that hides from the conversations that around our town. I'm always answering them. I will be here on candidates night to answer them. Our board will answer questions emailed or called in or presented in this format. We are as available as we can be at this time.
I understand that, Mike, but if you were the person on the other side of the screen like I am, you would probably have the same exact approach that I'm having, if I'm not mistaken. I have witnessed you at some of the meetings ask some very in-depth questions, and I would understand that you would feel the same way as I'm feeling right now.
Well, understand that we're doing our best to answer your questions in depth. That said, the rules that exist for public comment are such that it's a public comment. It doesn't necessarily mean that we respond or answer.
I'm fully aware of that, and I thank you after every question that you have answered.
Well, that's my point. We really are interested to hear anyone's question and try to answer them, even if the rules of engagement, so to speak, are just for us to say, thank you very much for your comment and dodge the question.
I sent a message to Aubrey this morning addressing that I did have several questions and if I had to be put on the agenda for today's meeting. So I am aware of that, but thank you. My next question would be on March 2nd, Aubrey had stated that she was working on the town report. Then on March 9th, Mike, you had clearly stated that it would be available online within the next couple of days. When can we expect to see this?
I'm going to have to beg off on the idea that I said that it would be online in the next couple of days. I don't believe that is accurate at all.
That meeting is posted. You could watch it.
I would have to watch it, and if I said that, I would be surprised because at no point were we in that position of having the documents pulled together to put out there. And so I don't, I don't know. I'd have to watch it. And if I said that, then I clearly misspoke. The requirements for posting the warrant are 20 days from election. And then there's a closer requirement. I think it's about 7 days or such to town meeting, prior to town meeting, to have the town report available. Now, Audrey is compiling these things. She has shared with us that she's locking herself in the office, which she's attempted to do a couple of times already, to prepare these documents to try and get them out earlier than is required. But unfortunately, every day brings a new challenge and things just happen. And this is one of those things that just got pushed off. We had the conversation today that I shared with Audrey that I felt that the priority item that she had listed was in fact the town warrant and the town report. So unless something else goes kind of sideways, I'm pretty sure that that's will be Audrey's goal over this whatever amount of time it takes to compile it. Then it goes out to be printed as far as the town report. So there's a timeline there that would not be a couple of days. And certainly we'll have a review of the town report so that some of the past errors that have snuck into the reports, maybe we have the ability to review it well and try to keep some of the typos and whatnot out of it. So we will get that out as soon as we can. I won't say a timeline in days for it, but it will absolutely have to meet the state's RSA guides lines for that. It's the drop dead dates. If we can do better than that, that's our goal.
Perfect, thank you. My next question is, on March 25th, you held a Zoom meeting with every committee. Where can I find that Zoom meeting video and the written minutes?
Every committee? I have no
Leanne,
idea.
say that one more time. Every committee?
Yeah, you had stated on the March 9th meeting or the March 16th, I'm not really too sure exactly what meeting it was, but you had stated that you were holding a Zoom meeting with every committee. I would like to know where I can find that Zoom meeting video or the written minutes.
We've never held one with all of them. Now, the different committees are using Zoom for their meetings.
I think if I can recall that Dave Strass was there and you guys wanted to, I'm going back to my notes here, but you had, Mike, I believe, was the one who said it, that you guys were meeting with all of the committees, whether it be one person or not. It was the day that you also spoke about the mailboxes, how it was their responsibility to come in and check their mailboxes and whatnot. That you would like to get together with all of them via Zoom.
I think I might know what you're talking about. And it's not, I would like to probably meet individually with all committees in the town when they hold, specifically when they have their meetings, if there was an item that needed to be brought forward from the board as to operationally. And I think that was probably in light of how we're structured to handle legal issues, in which case the Board of Selectmen is the gatekeeper for members of boards and committees to reach out to the town's attorney and incur legal fees. So there was some clarification on process on how that should work, that at some point, whether that's this whole board or just a representative from our board might want to sit with the various committees to go over what our process is, because we were looking to probably either tweak the process or go back to installing the steps required, because maybe those have gotten a little lax. So I think that might be where the conversation was going, because we have not at any point in time, since I've been a member of this board, set up a meeting with all boards and committees and such. I have known that we have done that in the past when I was on planning board and zoning board, because there were some issues, again, addressed on the legal matters, that we brought the town's attorney in to sit through process and we invited all the boards and members in, so they weren't functioning as their own boards. It was just to be presented by the select boards, you know, held a meeting with them and our town's attorney at the time. But nothing like that has been scheduled, nothing like that has been attempted, and we have no plans to meet with all the committees in a collective group. So I think however that came across, that's not what was meant. By that. And it's not what happened either. Yeah, right. So.
Okay, so I can go back on the March 9th video and check that.
I would, if I were you. If
Okay.
you know,
Okay, because I do have listed here on even on March 9th, I had addressed you guys that the audio was pretty awful that day, and you had spoke about the school budget, the $525,000 increase in schools, you know, and you had went on and on and on about that, or the state, you know, issue with the 5% more, and all of it was that meeting where you had stated that it would be nice to get everybody together on March 25th. So was there any meeting that was held on March 25th that the public should be aware of?
No, there was no getting together. I don't know, beyond what I've already stated, what you're referencing. And if there's a March 25th meeting, we probably would have had the date something here, because we just approved the March 23rd regular meeting minutes. And the 25th would have been a Thursday. And there's no boards meeting on Thursday.
My
That was the
personal
date
notes
of our
show.
meeting with CMA.
Right, it was the CMA engineering report. That was a Zoom in meeting that was covered again today at a summary. But I was myself, I was the only board member in attendance. And again, the town administrator was with me. So
Okay,
I can't address what you're referencing. I have no recollection of it.
I've got nothing in my records about attending a 25th meeting.
okay, I'll go back on the March 9th meeting and watch that. And my last question here is the street lighting. I know that there's been a lot of issues in regards to the street lighting and you guys taking those away. I would like to, for clarification, understand the concept. I think this question would be towards Chuck. What is the reason for your belief in getting rid of the street lighting? The street lighting has been there for bus stops. I will be a mom to speak on behalf of my own children that they are out at the bus stop at 5:30 in the morning. It is dark out at that time. The only light that my child has is his cell phone walking up to the bus stop and the street light that's there. And he is on a very sharp corner on Route 153 to Plantation Road. I don't know if you guys understood that that was the reason why some of the street lights are there. I would like to hear the reasons why you would like to get rid of the street lights in town, other than the fact that our bill is astronomical.
I can answer that, Leanne. I was on this.
Speak up, Tom.
I'm on this project, Leanne. I can answer this for you. The main thing was, we did take in safety into account. I drove around this town, numerous times, looking at all the streetlights, actually physically getting out of my car, reading the pole number, looking at the light. I've done it at night, done it during the day, at different points of the day and different points of the night. We're not shutting them all off. The bill we got is $9,000 and it's climbing. That's what we're paying on streetlights right now. There's some that are there's 3 on a dead end road. Didn't think we need those. Any corners, intersections, where safety would come into play, those would be staying on. And we still haven't got the complete list because there's dates, lights were put up, yet they charge a different amount for. So that's what we're trying to go through too in this process. So that's just been a quick decision type thing. So I have way too much time on it, but it's what needs to be done just for the safety aspect. And that's what was my main thing when I went out to look at these, whether they could be shut off or not, was the bus stops, the corners, the intersections, at different spots. I had input from the police department, fire department, the other board members also. So it wasn't just a willy-nilly thing. Taking the safety, that's played the biggest part in this whole process. So when I know more on which ones we plan on shutting off, I can get in touch with you if you like. That's not an issue.
Well, those will be discussed here anyway.
Right.
But just for clarification, the S curve at Lord's Hill, and then wraps around where Plantation departs at the very top of Lord's Hill. Those streetlights were never targeted to be shut off, just so you're aware of those two or so that are right in close proximity to your location. Those were not going to be shut off.
Okay, I might have been misunderstood that I assumed that all the street lighting in town was getting shut off. I must have misheard that part of the conversation. So I think that.
Now, for you, Leanne, just so you know, we're really trying to indulge you with all these questions, but in the future, we're not going to spend this much time. We typically, in our rules of procedure, only allot, it's either 3 or 5 minutes, 3, I believe, to an individual on, public comment. Now, granted, with that, we would extend that given the subject matter and the relevance of the conversation at the time. But these conversations do have a time limit on it. As Tom pointed out, we've been here for 4+ hours. So if you've got.
Oh, I know, I've been here for 4 hours too. So I'm well aware of that. Thank you. And as I said, I did, reach out to Aubrey this morning to see if I had to be put on the agenda, because I was aware that there is a 3 to 5 minute leeway period towards questions. Again, I apologize for taking more of your time, but do remember that I did sit here for 3 hours watching about bridges and whatnot. So I think it was okay. And I just want to say thank you for taking the time, for all of you to answer my questions. And I will look forward to seeing you again next week.
Well, Dan, I wasn't cutting you off. If you did have, an important question or two, we'll indulge those, but maybe you save some of the lesser ones for next week. Because I do some work after these meetings. So I've got a window to make some calls for folks.
Oh, no, I'm done with my questions. That is why I said thank you for your time. I don't have any further questions.
Okay.
I will get some questions together for next week. Should I make an appointment to be on the agenda?
No, you can call in, I should think, for public comment. If it's public comment, that's how we'll treat it. And we'll talk to you then. People that are coming in for on the agenda probably have a very specific reason to something that needs a resolution that we can work with. But if it's public comment, that's how we'll handle it.
Okay, it will be more of questions. So with questions, would that be something that would apply for the agenda, or can questions be on public comment?
Public comment.
Perfect. Thank you. I will see all of you guys next week. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for calling in.
All right, is there anything left anybody needs to cover?
Is there any more calls?
No more? Okay. So with that, I guess I've got some follow-up stuff that I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get some information into Audrey here for the filings with HEB, and the check probably needs to be made out specifically, so I'll have to search for that information from Chris Fournier as to the specific language of who we make that out to, with the ARM fund, DES, whatnot. And I'll probably want to try and grab a copy of the budget, because I just haven't been able to find the time to look at a budget, the actual lately. And I know Audrey was trying to do some updates on that for the last time. So with that, anybody
Make a motion to adjourn.
could have anybody and possibly any more.
Hot second.
All in favor?
All right.
Okay, Hal and I, thank you, guys, and Audrey. Let's see, May.